I thought he would be a big customer, the blacksmith grumbled. He put the silver coin in his pocket and pulled his book out again to read by the fireplace. Mag had no intention to custom make his kitchenware at the blacksmith. The products were not well done and could not even be compared to Mabai and Lulu's skills, much less the system. The system's kitchen set was completely sufficient for a professional chef to use, much less to teach with. As for the other furniture like tables and chairs, Mag also completed his procurement from the system. Right now, he only had to wait for the building's construction to be completed, to put everything in, and wait for the students to arrive. Mag was in a good mood, so when he returned to the restaurant, he glanced at the little blackboard hanging by the restaurant's door and brought it in. After a while, he came out again with the blackboard with the following words written on it: "Today's new product, spicy escargots." The weather was cold and there were fewer customers drinking beer. Rum had become a rather suitable replacement. However, few restaurants had dedicated side dishes to go with the drinks, and that was the reason for the launch of the spicy escargots. It was a dedicated side dish to go with the drinks. Mag returned to the restaurant and watched Annie draw as she sat by the window. He walked up to her with a smile and looked over to see what she was drawing. It was a simple drawing with blue skies and white clouds. There was also a corner of Aiden Square. There was not much technique involved, and so it was a comfortable drawing to look at. It did not even have a clear subject, it was just everything one could see seated from here. But Mag felt that the drawing was very enjoyable to look at. It was as though the scenery was all in the picture. Annie added the last stroke and placed her pen down. Only then did she turn back to look at Mag with a smile. "It's a very beautiful drawing." Mag praised her with a smile. Annie took a picture book that was on the table at the side and passed it to Mag as she signed, "New picture book." Mag received the picture book and saw a giant orange swan drawn on the cover. The name of the picture book was The Ugly Duckling. Mag flipped through the picture book with a complex feeling. After a while, he looked at the grill rack over a fire on the last page. There was a roast goose dripping with golden oil on it. He gulped and could not contain his laughter. This must be a demonized version of Amy's The Ugly Duckling. What a sad ending. However, the story still had a moral. Did you think that life had lied to you? It did not. Your life was already predestined. No matter how hard the ugly duckling worked, it would still end up as a roast goose. Oh yes! The ugly duckling did not turn into a roast goose at the end of the story. It escaped, and the duck who bullied the ugly duckling since young became a roast duck, while the latter became an orange swan. Mag looked at Ugly Duckling, who was laying on the counter sleeping, as he wondered what it would feel if it were to see this story. "It's pretty good." Mag nodded. If one were to cast that preconceived notion out, this version of the Ugly Duckling was way more exciting and magical. It was also rather interesting in its sense. After all, he did not understand how a four-limbed animal that was hatched from an egg at first could end up becoming an orange swan flying in the sky. The two little ones, together with imagination, made the story even more interesting and fun. The story of a little orange cat striving hard to grow up, defeating the bad duck, and chasing its dream to fly was even more encouraging. Can it not be printed? Annie looked at Mag with a little disappointment. Mag replied with a smile, "It can. Let's try printing 5,000 copies after the mermaid picture book is sold out." Annie's eyes lit up as she nodded eagerly. Mag sat in front of Annie and reread the picture book that he browsed through quickly just now. Annie's drawing skills were still improving. Although it was not an obvious improvement compared to Miss Black Cat, the details had made the drawings come to life even more. The protagonist of this story is the ugly duckling and some other small animals. Compared to the complex characters and costumes in Miss Black Cat, the characters in the ugly duckling were much simpler, but the details were done better, and that would make the reader more absorbed in reading the picture book. The reader would be easily touched by the cuteness of the little animals. In particular, the ugly duckling's cuteness and clumsiness were brought out perfectly in the picture book. That showed how meticulous and observant Annie was usually. I think we can print 10,000 copies. Mag changed his mind. This was a picture book targeted at toddlers. There might be an unexpected result once it enters the market. There were more and more customers buying The Little Mermaid in the recent couple of days, and many even queued just for the picture book. Annie had also become the idol of many young children. Mag would often hear Annie being mentioned by children who were trying to catch a glimpse of her. The little one had truly become an illustrator and was loved by many. Young mistress, we're all sold out for the 1,000 copies today. There were even customers asking to buy the remaining stocks we have at 3,000 copper coins each, Mela told Eofi excitedly as she ran into the tavern. Sold out. Eofi was stunned. That was 1,000 picture books sold at 2,000 copper coins a copy, and they were sold out. She just received the picture books that Mag got someone to send over last night and sold them outside Titan Tavern this morning according to Mag's arrangement. She did not expect that the picture book, which was limited to 2 per customer, would be sold out in just half a day. That was 2 million copper coins earned. Yes, there weren't many who bought it at first, but after one customer bought it and advertised it around, suddenly a group of people came running over to buy them, and in no time at all, 1,000 copies were sold out. Mela nodded. Her fingers were still a little limp from counting all that money. I see. Eofi thought. It seemed that the picture book's value was way higher than its selling price. Otherwise, no one would request to buy everything at a 50% price increase. Mela urged Eofi. Young mistress, the customer is still waiting outside. Should we just sell our remaining stocks to him and earn 900,000 copper coins more for master? Although Mela was not good at calculations, she was very clear about the math for this one. Not only could they earn more money selling the picture books to this customer, but they could also save the trouble of having to sell them themselves. Tell him that we will not be selling the rest to him, and we will also not increase the price of the picture book. From tomorrow onwards, each customer is only limited to 1 picture book, and priority will go to customers who spend time in the tavern, Eofi replied with a shake of her head. Mag had already foreseen this situation in his letter and even instructed Eofi not to sell them all to any one person. He would prefer to sell the books to as many people as possible, because this was not just a very outstanding picture book, it was also in for the Black Cat Opera troupe. The Black Cat Opera's actors gathered together to read the picture book. Mela sent it over to the maestro in the morning, but they only got to read it during their break time, and they were all impressed. It felt amazing to see the opera that they performed daily appear in the form of a picture book and completely exceed their expectations. Moreover, they had already found out that Mr. Hades had bought the exclusive right to use the picture book format of Miss Black Cat with 5 million copper coins. The theater was closed and was being upgraded for the past few days. They had been rehearsing in the backyard and would welcome their audience with a brand new look, after the theater had completed its upgrade. At first, they were still worried that the frequent closing of the theater after it opened would cause a loss of their audience. However, after reading this picture book, their worry was diminished. Instead, they began to look forward to the scene whereby the theater was filled with an audience again. However, this picture book cost 2,000 copper coins per copy, and Mela said that we have to sell 1,000 copies today, which means, it will earn 2 million copper coins by today. Wow! Doesn't this mean that this picture book could earn us tens of millions of copper coins? It seems that the maestro has made a not very smart choice, all the actors murmured. Vicky walked over as she scolded them. Why are you all gathering here? Don't you need to practice? The opera house is going to reopen in 2 days' time, and I'll punish you if you fail to perform and disgrace me by then. All of them quickly put down the picture book and dispersed. Vicky picked up the picture book and the corner of her mouth twitched. She knew even more information. Mr. Hades had sent a total of 10,000 picture books over to Eofi. He priced them at 2,000 copper coins per copy and limited its sale to 1,000 copies per day. She saw that Mela had already finished her work when she was resting on the second floor earlier. The 1,000 copies of picture books were all snatched up in half a day. Its demand had far exceeded its supply. Which also meant these 10,000 copies would be completely sold out in 10 days and earn Mr. Hades 20 million copper coins. Without any publicity and with a steep price, Miss Black Cat suddenly became famous just like that. It would be fake if she said she had no regrets. Right now, Vicky's heart was bleeding. Her initial anticipation was that Hades would release the ink version of the picture book in a few months' time, and with Annie's excellent drawing skills and great storyline, Miss Black Cat would have rather good sales. However, after deducting all the costs, given the black and white print's meager profit, the annual earnings wouldn't be too high. However, she had never expected that Hades was so efficient and finished the printing in just a few short days. What she even less expected was that he actually released a color-printed version with a high resolution. She had read the original book and she actually couldn't see that the picture book that she received in the morning was a copy. What she knew was that the Norland continent's printing technology was still in the black and white stage. Not to mention the advanced color printing technique, they hadn't even figured out the basic theory of color printing. What Hades did was no different from cheating. Perhaps someone has smuggled the color printing machine out from Underground City. Vicky murmured to herself, feeling that it was rather unbelievable. That was the only plausible explanation. However, no matter what, the color printing had made the Miss Black Cat book into a source of wealth. The picture book's intricate drawing style and outstanding colors were perfectly preserved by the color printing, and the exciting story was much better than the majority of the picture books on the market. Vicky had already ascertained that Miss Black Cat would definitely become immensely popular and bring Hades great rewards. And, she had the right to share those profits initially. On the bright side, if the Miss Black Cat picture book becomes very popular, more people will be willing to step into Black Cat Opera House to listen to the opera's version of Miss Black Cat. A smile appeared on Vicky's lips. Mr. Hades' 5 million copper coins wasn't a bad deal for her. She used that sum of money to do a complete makeover for the theatre and transformed it from a circus to a real professional opera house. The opera house could accommodate 1,000 audience members and huge opera productions could be performed on the stage. She even hired a few new staff members for the theatre. She didn't dare to think about all these things before, but now she had achieved them all in one shot. All she needed to do was to remember Mr. Hades' kindness to her. Meanwhile, the success of the Miss Black Cat picture book was mainly due to his excellent mind in business and operation. She even decided not to ask XI to investigate the color printing. If the printing machine indeed came from Underground City, to conceal any traces of Underground City, XI would most probably kill Hades right away. However, I could still find out more when I meet Mr. Hades again. After all, it's better to keep a low profile with this thing, Vicky mumbled to herself. Mag didn't expect that someone would link the color printing to Underground City. However, he was indeed much more relieved after making the Night Elves his scapegoat. As long as someone asked about the matter of color printing, he would get them to go out and turn left to look for the Night Elves. At the dinner table, Babla held onto an escargot with furrowed brows. Is it impossible to suck out the escargots if we don't drink alcoholic beverages? The other maidens had similar facial expressions too. They looked at the escargots in their hands helplessly. It was today's new product and Mag fried a helping for all of them during dinner. However, after smelling the spicy escargots and sipping a mouthful of the spicy soup, the ladies were stumped. Slurp. 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 After sucking out 3 escargots in a row, Amy put down the shells, chewed on the meat and said to everyone as she shook her head, "No. You can still suck it out even if you don't drink. Escargots are so delicious." Everyone looked at one another, feeling their faces heat up. At a moment like this, brute force will create a miracle. Irina took out a hammer and a chopping block out of the blue. She put the escargot on the chopping block and slammed the hammer on it. The shell shattered and a complete escargot flesh was left behind. Irina smashed a few more times before eating them with chopsticks. Mag smiled as though he expected their predicament. He picked up an escargot, sipped a mouthful of gravy first before holding the escargot with 2 fingers and demonstrated as he explained, "Actually, there is a technique when it comes to sucking the escargot. Put the escargot in your mouth and cover it with your lips. Take a deep breath and when the escargot isn't paying attention, suck gently. The escargot will naturally end up in your mouth. The escargot will only have a soul like this. The escargot's tail is already processed, so only the head is left. Everything inside is edible, so you can suck them without any worries." Mag reminded them. However, he had to admit that compared to Irina's way of smashing the escargots with a hammer, using a toothpick was indeed more refined. Mia picked out an escargot, bit it gently and revealed a smile. "This escargot flesh is so bouncy and spicy. It's so scrumptious." "Yes. It gets tastier the more we chew on it. It's spicy and crunchy. It's a pity that we can't drink now. It's a perfect match to go with alcoholic beverages." Angela already had a few empty shells next to her. She picked up an escargot with her pinky pointed up. The escargot flesh ended up in her mouth with just a gentle suck. Mag looked at her glistening red lips. This was perhaps the so-called racial advantage. She mastered it immediately. "I intend to bring all of you to a vacation at the Demon Islands when we go on leave a few days later. Do any one of you have any issues regarding that?" Mag asked everyone. Mia's eyes lit up and she happily said, "Can we go to the beach to swim?" Mag nodded smilingly. "Yes. You may bring your swimwear. I like the beach. We'll get to eat a lot of seafood." Amy's eyes were also glistening as she thought of the time that she stayed at the Demon Islands briefly. "Yes. There are many seafood merchants." Angela said smilingly. Mag flicked a glance at her. He could sense that she was making a dirty joke, but he had no evidence to prove it. After dinner and a brief rest, Mag opened the restaurant door and began their daily operations. "Welcome to Mamie Restaurant." Mag stood at the door with a smile. His gaze swept across all those familiar faces in the long lines in front of the door and stopped briefly on a middle-aged man with a square face. However, his gaze quickly went over him naturally. He has indeed come. Mag's lips curved slightly. Rankster, the man who was as strong as him. Even though he had disguised himself simply and restrained his aura, Mag still saw through him instantly. The giant dragons weren't good at such matters, but it was enough to fool most people when he restrained himself to such an extent. At least, he looked just like a normal rich merchant in opulent clothes when he stood in the line now. There was nothing special about him. What made Mag surprised was that Elizabeth didn't come with him. He wondered if she had come to Chaos City. The restaurant hadn't got any new employees ever since she left and they were short in manpower, so they were rather busy. It naturally would be best if she was willing to come back. However, Rankster, the king of the dragons, had returned. If he saw his daughter working in the restaurant and being given an order, Mag wondered if there would be 10,000 warriors coming to demolish his restaurant. Just thinking about it was a little terrifying. Mag was having wild thoughts as Rankster moved forward with the line. He was also sizing up Mag. Initially, he thought that Mia was cheated and imprisoned by the restaurant when he found out that she was working as a server. He wanted to avenge his daughter. However, after Elizabeth explained everything to him, he realized that the restaurant's boss named Mag had taken Mia in when she almost starved to death and he treated her very well. That made him decide not to demolish the restaurant. The name Mag sounded rather familiar. He suddenly recalled that Alex's first name was Mag when he was lining up. He began to feel suspicious and couldn't help sizing up this young boss carefully now. Their ages matched. They were both in their early 30s. However, be it their looks, heights, and figures, they both had distinct differences. Humans were different from the other races. They couldn't change how they looked so easily. Moreover, a proud chap like Alex would never change his looks to become the boss and chef of a restaurant in Chaos City secretly. With his culinary skills, Rankster had tried his charred pheasant back then before. He quickly retracted his gaze and gave Mag a basic judgment inwardly. He was a normal human, but his physical strength was not bad. He was likely a second-tier knight, but there weren't many traces of combat on him, so his actual combat ability was probably below the second tier. Then, his gaze moved into the restaurant with anticipation and a tinge of nervousness. His daughter, the one who was separated from him when she was still in the womb, the one whom he hadn't met yet, was going to meet him. Rankster, who was afraid of nothing, was actually feeling scared right now. He was scared that she would ask him why he didn't come to look for her all these years. He was afraid that she would ask him why he abandoned her and her mother, and made them suffer humiliation and pain. He was a terrible husband and a terrible father. Yabimiya. This name was chosen by him back then, but he only mentioned it casually. He didn't expect her to remember it and name their daughter that. Rankster walked past Mag calmly as he stepped into the restaurant, but he was stunned and his footsteps faltered when his gaze landed on Yabimiya, who was smiling at the side. Yabimiya was standing there with smiling eyes, but he was instantly reminded of that maiden that he met among the flowers back then. She was 18 years old back then and her life was ruined after she met him. Countless memories flashed across his mind. He thought he was already emotionless and wouldn't be affected by emotions anymore, but he only realized he was lying to himself right at that moment. "This way please, sir. The customers behind you need to come in too." Mia's voice interrupted his memories. "Why yes." Rankster nodded and smiled at Yabimiya unnaturally before sitting down at an empty seat at the side. "This man is so weird," Mia glanced at Rankster and murmured inwardly, but she soon retracted her thoughts and continued to welcome the customers into the restaurant and take their orders. Rankster swiftly regained his calmness after sitting down. He seemed to be sizing up Yabimiya inconspicuously. Watching her move around familiarly, he felt a little heartache and a little relief. She must have had a hard time all these years. However, the golden dragon's bloodline in her had been completely activated. She was already a pure golden dragon and her royal blood was extremely pure. And according to Elizabeth, Yabimiya had only activated her bloodline for less than 6 months and she had already reached the 5th tier. Her natural talent was even above Elizabeth's back then. She was indeed his daughter. With such a talent, only she could sit on the golden throne in the future. Very soon, he began to plan the route for Yabimiya's advancement in his mind, including the techniques and cultivation methods to teach at her current tier, gaining experience at some secret locations and catching a magic beast to be her guardian. "Sir, may I ask what would you like to have?" A familiar voice spoke up. "You won't be able to finish all this food by yourself. Wastage is not permitted in Mamie restaurant, so I cannot order all the dishes for you." Mia put down her notebook and seriously said to Rankster, "Food is very precious and my boss time is even more precious. Many more customers are waiting for their turn to eat." Rankster looked at the way Mia was trying to lecture him and felt rather amused and exasperated. Did this last think that her boss is the most important person? Couldn't he, the king of the frost dragons, order a table full of dishes? Rankster sat down again and smilingly asked Mia, "Then, could you tell me what I should order, young lady? This is my first time here, so I'm not very sure." In principle, Mag didn't allow them to recommend dishes to the customers. It was to give the customers more freedom to choose and reduce their workload. However, this Mr. gave her a special feeling. Perhaps, it was because he looked lonely, because he had come to eat alone? Or perhaps it was because she was amused and yet felt bad for him at the same time when he stood up in a fluster. After pondering for a while, she pointed at the Buddha jumps over the wall and said, "If you want to nourish your body, you can order a helping of Buddha jumps over the wall. It's super delicious and it'll run out later." Rankster's mouth couldn't help but twitch when he saw that 10,000 copper coins price tag, which was much higher than the other dishes. This was indeed his dear daughter. However, he still nodded smilingly. "All right, I'll order a helping of Buddha jumps over the wall. What else, then? Is your taste light, or do you like spicy food? Mia asked again. I'm fine with either. Then, you can order a helping of sweet and savory red braised pork, a helping of the eggplant with garlic sauce that goes well with rice, and one helping of crispy and tender beggar's chicken. That should be quite enough. Mia asked Rankster, would it be too much for you? Rankster nodded and said, it's fine. I can order more if it's not enough. To a giant dragon, this amount of food wasn't much. All right. Please wait for a moment. Mia nodded and moved on to the next customer. Rankster looked at Mia's busy figure with an increasingly gentle gaze and a fatherly smile. Amy propped her head on Ugly Duckling's head, pointed her little finger at Rankster and whispered, Big Sister Annie, do you see that Mr. looking at Big Sister Mia with a weird intention? An old lecher. Angela happened to walk by and saw Rankster when she looked at where Amy was pointing. It was still all right. He looked like a prim and proper mister. His gaze wasn't improper, instead it looked rather gentle like an elder. Harrison chuckled and said to Georgie, the spicy escargots look quite good. Georgina went to visit her grandma today, so we can have a few drinks. The rum is a good thing. You can have more. I have to put my little Princess Christy to bed tonight, so I can't drink too much. Georgie shook his head and replied, but his tone of voice was rather smug. Harrison patted his chest and said, Tisk. I'll go put the little princess to bed tonight too. I'll guard her. You're not worthy. Georgie rejected him without any hesitation. Humph. I have won myself in 2 years, Harrison said angrily. It was true that he was envious. He wasn't envious when he saw his boys previously. Instead, he was even feeling a hint of schadenfreude. However, ever since little Christy was born, Harrison watched her grow up, become cuter and call Joey Daddy adorably. He was indeed getting jealous. When do you and Georgina intend to get married? Georgie asked. We have to wait till next year. She said she will bring me to meet her father sometime later. I'm feeling a little scared. What should I do? Harrison was feeling uneasy. Are you afraid her father will call you bro? Georgie teased. Scram. Am I that old? Hee hee. You have found yourself a young wife. Indeed, as long as a man works hard enough, his wife could still be underage. Georgina has come of age. She just had her birthday 2 days ago, Harrison said gravely. Yo, can you guys do the deed now? Scram. Rankster looked at the 2 human fatties sitting next to him. He thought he could have his meal alone leisurely. He didn't expect to share the table with 3 other people, 2 of them were even very talkative. I, Rankster, have never shared tables with anyone. He didn't voice out his thoughts eventually because the 4th person was brought to the table by Mia. The rules of Mamie restaurant was that the customers allowed the sharing of tables by default. The elves were sitting at the same table with the demons, so it didn't seem to be such a big deal for him to share a table with the humans. What magic does this restaurant have? How did it make so many customers so obedient? That boss power was only so-so, Rankster murmured inwardly. His gaze swept across the service staff in the restaurant and he seemed taken aback. That maiden of an unknown race over there was actually a 9th-tier water magic caster. With that kind of power at her age, she was definitely an excellent outlier on the Norland continent. The maiden standing next to the counter and using spatial magic to serve the dishes, was an 8th-tier magic caster, and she was an extremely rare spatial magic caster. That naturally seductive little succubus also had an 8th-tier power. And that little half-elf girl holding an orange cat behind the counter was 7th tier. Rankster's eyes almost popped out of his eye sockets. That little girl was only about 3 or 4 years old and yet she was already a 7th-tier magic caster. No. Judging from the magic waves in her body, she was about to break through the threshold to an 8th-tier magic caster. What terrible natural gift was that? A 9th tier water magic caster, an 8th tier spatial magic caster and an 8th tier succubus were working as service staff in this tiny restaurant, and there was also this gifted half-elf magic caster. He couldn't help sizing up Mag again. Who exactly was he? How did he gather them here and make them work as a humble server willingly? Mag didn't know what Rankster was thinking now, otherwise he would tell Rankster that what he saw only scratched the surface. There were also Sally, the current leader of the Wind Forest, Connie the chieftain of the Orcs, Camilla the new chief of the Vampires, Babla the princess of the Moon Nation, Gina the princess of the Merfolk, and Elizabeth and Yabimia, your precious daughters. The Princess Collector. He had indeed lived up to his name. This was the first Buddha jumps over the wall that was ordered that night. The meaty aroma spread instantly and many customers looked over. Meanwhile, Rankster, who was sitting in front of the Buddha jumps over the wall, looked dazed right now. This smells so good. There was a mesmerizing liquor aroma in the midst of the meaty aroma. He simply couldn't imagine what kind of ingredients were used and how it was cooked to make such an aromatic and rich soup. I'm afraid that even the gods and Buddhas would climb over the wall when they smell this. Rankster murmured as he instantly understood the meaning behind the dish's name. There were all kinds of ingredients floating in the thick brown soup. They were visually soft, but they still maintained their shapes. They didn't break apart due to the long cooking process. Rankster wasn't particular towards food. Becoming stronger constantly was his goal. As for food, as long as it was edible. However, he felt a craving for this soup right now. Thud. Mia knocked on the beggar's chicken's mud casing gently with a small wooden hammer and cracks appeared all over it. Then, it opened up like a lotus flower and revealed the golden beggar's chicken inside it. The roast chicken's aroma spread after the mud casing was removed and Rankster couldn't help shifting his gaze over. This roast chicken looks great too. Rankster's eyes lit up. The golden roast chicken that was glistening had an enticing smell. It still maintained its unique aroma even under the suppression of the Buddha jumps over the wall. Please enjoy. Mia put away the hammer and walked to the kitchen. Rankster brought the little pot over and scooped a spoonful of soup into his mouth. The liquor aroma had seeped into the soup and it filled his taste buds gradually. He couldn't differentiate if that mesmerizing taste was liquor or soup at that moment. How did the taste of so many scrumptious ingredients get into this tiny mouthful of soup? Not only was it not abrupt, the rich layers were intoxicating. This was a master level's cooking technique. He ate another mouthful of meat. The soft and tender chicken had a rich meaty aroma. It was soft but not mushy when chewed, and there was an endless aftertaste. He scooped up a piece of shark's fin and the smooth shark's fin glided into his mouth immediately. The shark's fin that was soaked by the soup had a very special texture and beautiful taste. It brought a completely different experience from the chicken. Rankster felt a mild numbness on his scalp and sweat appeared on his forehead. He had never experienced such extreme tastiness before. The whole small pot of Buddha jumps over the wall ended up in his stomach very quickly. He put down the clean little soup pot and licked his lips, wishing for more. Looking at the clean pot, he felt surprised and amused at the same time. Harrison and George raised their eyebrows in shock. This Mr. gulped down the 10,000 copper coins per helping Buddha jumps over the wall as if he was just drinking a bowl of hot soup before his main course. Unfortunately, they had no idea that to Rankster, this was already a very refined way of eating. After all, he was using a spoon for the first time in his life. Could it be that I have been alone for too long? Rankster thought as he picked up that golden roast chicken. The roast chicken wasn't small. If they measured the food portion for humans, it was just enough for one meal for an adult. Rankster tore a chicken thigh off and then bit off half of it with a single bite. The crispy chicken skin broke off easily and the tender chicken meat dissolved in his mouth. The fattiness and freshness that belonged to a chicken blossomed instantaneously on the taste buds on the tip of his tongue immediately. Before he could chew, the chicken slid down his throat like a naughty little chick. It was tender and tasted unique. This unexpected scrumptiousness stumped Rankster. Different from the chicken in the Buddha jumps over the wall, this chicken had a roasted fragrance which elevated the meat into the main character. Amazing! Rankster relaxed his eyebrows, feeling captivated by this chicken. He ate the remaining half-chicken drumstick. He even chewed and swallowed the crispy chicken bone. Gulp! Harrison's Adam apple moved. He was just casually looking at this mister who looked righteous but ate ravenously. However, the way that he ate, looked rather appetizing. It made them feel hungry. Trj gave him a look, hinting to him not to stare at Rankster. Judging from the way he ate, this gentleman shouldn't be a human. The orcs retained certain orcs characteristics even when they resembled humans, like the kitten ears of the kitten-eared woman and the bushy tail of the vixen lady. The majority of the demons didn't bother to look like humans. They had a proud sense of racial superiority. Therefore, this gentleman most likely came from Dragon Island and was a giant dragon. A giant dragon wasn't to be messed around with. They shouldn't try to antagonize a giant dragon even when they were in Chaos City. Harrison retracted his gaze and turned to look at the kitchen, wondering when his dishes would be served. Rankster finished the whole beggar's chicken before gulping down the entire glass of water at the side. He felt rather sated. He seemed to understand why these maidens chose to stay on in this restaurant now. He deemed this boss' culinary skills to be the strongest that he had ever encountered. As for his earlier thoughts, he had completely forgotten about them. A chef with such extraordinary culinary skills must have spent the majority of his efforts on improving his culinary skills, so he couldn't be Alex. Since he wasn't Alex, it didn't matter who he was. He was just an ordinary man to him. Then, he turned his gaze to the remaining red braised pork and the eggplant with garlic sauce. The eggplant with garlic sauce looked just like a fish, but if he looked closer, he would realize that it wasn't a fish but a whole eggplant that was carved out to look like a fish. A vegetarian dish. Rankster frowned. He killed, drank alcohol and ate meat from the time that he was born. He had never eaten vegetarian food before. He had never eaten any vegetarian food even during his worst time at the bottom of the ravine. He looked up and saw the busy Yabimiya. When he thought that this was the dish that she had highly recommended, he picked up the chopsticks with hesitation. For Mia's sake, I will take one bite. He picked up a bit of eggplant and popped it into his mouth. Just one bite? Just one more bite? It's so good. One more bite. It's a little salty. How about a mouthful of rice? Just one bite. They are so compatible. Let's finish them both. This red braised pork is also so delicious. It's soft and mushy and the sauce is a little sweet. The 3 meat dishes, 1 vegetarian dish and 1 big pot of rice in front of Rankster were all finished when Harrison's dishes were served. Rankster rubbed his stomach, feeling only 30% full. Therefore, he raised his hands again. Sir! You're already done. Yabimiya walked over and looked at the empty plates in front of Rankster with shock. Rankster nodded with a smile. Yes. I would like to order another round of the dishes again. Mia shook her head and said, you can reorder the other dishes except Buddha jumps over the wall, which is limited to 1 helping per customer. You can switch to another dish, like the Peking duck. All right. I will have that then. Rankster nodded. After some pondering, he said again, then, I'll change the other 3 dishes too. Rankster eventually ordered all the dishes on the menu and finished all of them for this meal. Mister, you're so awesome. You did the feat that I want to do but cannot achieve. Harrison, who was watching the whole time, gave a thumbs up to Rankster, who was rubbing his stomach in satisfaction. Rankster smiled and got up suavely to settle his bill. He held onto his takeaway fried rice and glanced at Yabimiya before leaving the restaurant. That's the first customer who has finished all the items on our menu, right? Babla said with amazement. Yes. His appetite is astonishing. It isn't an easy feat to support himself. Angela nodded. She would have starved to death on the Demon Islands if she had his appetite. "This Mr. is quite interesting," Mia murmured to herself with a smile. However, their busy work soon made them forget about this little episode. Rankster smilingly asked Elizabeth, who was nibbling on the fried rice, "So, those maidens stayed to work in the restaurant because they get to eat the boss dishes for free daily?" Elizabeth paused and looked at Rankster with a funny expression. After thinking seriously for a moment she answered, "Yes, and no. Although the scrumptious food is one of the reasons that they stayed on for, the main reason which made them willing to let go of their original identities and stay on in the restaurant, to do that seemingly simple job, is the restaurant's ambience that feels like a home." The ambience that feels like a home. Rankster was thoughtful. He looked at Elizabeth quietly for a while. "Have you worked in Mamie restaurant before?" Cough, cough, cough. Elizabeth suddenly choked and coughed. Rankster quickly conjured up a glass of ice water and gave it to her. Elizabeth took a few sips and calmed down. Looking at the glass of ice water, she calmly said, "This would be a glass of warm water if it was Boss Mag." Rankster scratched his head and embarrassedly chuckled. "I've learned that now." Elizabeth finished all the fried rice on the plate. She put down the spoon and asked Rankster, "Father, when do you intend to acknowledge Mia?" Rankster's eyes became smiley when Mia was mentioned. "I just met her. She looks very well behaved and a little like you, but her temper is milder." "Do you think that I have a bad temper?" Elizabeth asked. "And no." Rankster's expression froze. "I'm just saying that life's hardships didn't make her dejected. That made me rather gratified." "So, when do you intend to acknowledge her?" "Today. Let's wait for her on her way back after work," Rankster replied. "All right." Elizabeth nodded. "See you guys tomorrow." Mag stood at the door and waved goodbye to all the ladies. He watched the young and energetic maidens leave. Irina stood behind Mag, holding a glass of milk and smilingly asked, "Do you think Rankster will acknowledge Mia today?" Mag turned around and saw the milk mustache on her upper lip. He nodded with a smile. "I guess he will. He isn't a patient fellow. What about you?" Irina licked her lips and revealed an attractive smile. "I'm not, either." Mag closed the door and then picked up Irina. "I'm only toying with you." "I haven't finished the milk yet," Irina said coyly. "Don't worry. There will be plenty of it later." There were two figures standing against the moonlight in the middle of the street, making the ladies, who were returning to the dormitory, put their guard up. Yabimiya halted her steps and her eyes lit up when she saw those two figures. However, she became a little panicked when her gaze landed on that strapping figure. "It's Elizabeth!" Gina exclaimed and let down her guard. "It's indeed Elizabeth." Everyone quickly ascertained who the maiden on the side was. However, Babla narrowed her eyes when she saw the man standing next to Elizabeth. It was a familiar aura. She had seen that man on the battlefront at the extreme north. Rankster, the frost dragon that created a big problem for the Allied forces, who was also Elizabeth's father. What was he doing here in Chaos City? Why was he blocking their way? "Ladies, please go back first. I would like to be alone with Elizabeth for a while," Mia said. Although the ladies were a little perplexed when they heard Mia's words, they still returned to the dormitory after they greeted Elizabeth. Only 3 people were left on the street. "Mia." Elizabeth strode forward and hugged Mia. When she was on the brink of death at the front line on the ice sheets, she had thought of Mia, her little sister, who was one of the few people that still loved and cared for her in this world. "Big sister." Yabimiya also hugged her tightly. Her constant worries and longing finally had a perfect ending now. It was naturally best that her big sister was fine. Then, her gaze landed on that strapping figure. There were already tears glistening in her eyes when she softly asked, "Is that him?" Mother didn't survive that cold winter and would never get to see her hero again. Now, she saw him. He was indeed tall and mighty, but there was no colorful cloud and he wasn't the hero in her heart. Elizabeth let go of Mia, looked at Rankster and said, "Yes, Mia. This is our father." Mia. Rankster took a step forward. Mia teared up and sobbingly said, "Why, did you only appear now?" She had once thought she would be very happy, but when she really met this man, all she could think of was her mother who had died on that cold winter night. It was only a small ailment, but how could her frail body have pulled through hunger and coldness? Where was her hero at that time? Rankster's footsteps halted suddenly. He felt guilt and self-reproach when he saw the crying Yabimia. Elizabeth stood at the side and pursed her lips in silence, watching Mia with a pained gaze. "She? Your mother? Did she talk to you about me?" Rankster asked softly. "She said that you are her hero and will come back to fetch us on a colorful cloud one day." Mia shook her head at Rankster and sobbed. "But you lied to her. Do you know how difficult it is for a human woman to live in Chaos City with a half-dragon child? You told her to wait for you and she did, year after year. All her best years were pinned on your ethereal promise." Rankster clenched his fists tightly subconsciously and said with deep self-reproach, "I'm sorry, Mia. I've let you and your mother down." An outstanding woman like her would have had a bright future if she hadn't met him back then, but she had spent the rest of her life in misery because of him. Mia looked at Rankster and walked forward slowly. His stoic and handsome face was filled with self-reproach and pain right now. She stood still and looked at the man in front of her. The man whom her mother loved to death and waited for her whole life. Just like that, all the grievances and blame suddenly dissipated. "Mother, have you forgiven him? Or, have you never blamed him before?" She stared at the glowing ring hanging on the necklace around her neck and was dazed for a while. The ring seemed to have a spirit. It floated away from Mia's chest, got away from the string and flew towards Rankster. "This is..." Rankster looked at the ring hovering in front of him, stunned. He reached out with his right hand and gently grasped that ring. The silver ring had an ice crystal embedded in it. This was their token of love and the only thing that he had given her back then. Although it wasn't exceedingly expensive, it would be enough to let the mother and daughter duo survive in Chaos City if she had sold it. The white glow on the silver ring got dimmer gradually until it disappeared. Rankster felt something in his heart disappear along with it too. He felt an emptiness. Yabimia also looked at the sky with tears in her eyes, but she blinked the tears away. Mother hated to see her cry when she was small. She shouldn't cry at this final moment either. After a long time, Rankster put down his hand and walked to Yabimia. He crouched down and hugged her gently. Mia's emotions finally exploded at this moment. She hugged Rankster tightly, as though she was afraid to lose him again, or perhaps, she wanted to express all her longing. So, this was how a father's embrace felt like. It was indeed very warm, secure, and safe. Mia let go and took 2 steps back. She looked up at Rankster with an energetic smile and clearly said, "Father, I am Mia, Yabimia." Rankster looked at Yabimia's smile in a daze before smiling too. He placed his right hand on top of Mia's head and gently said, "From today on, you are Yabimia Cleveland, the princess of the Frost Dragons." Yabimia Cleveland. Yabimia repeated her name gently and the smile on her face became even brighter. "Mia, come back with us to Frost Dragon Island. Father wants to live with your sister and you," Rankster said to Mia. He owed the 2 sisters a lot, so he wanted to spend more time and care for them. He also wanted to teach them how to cultivate and grow. Mia shook her head and said to Rankster with a convicted gaze, "Father, I don't want to return to Dragon Island. I want to stay in Chaos City." "Why?" Rankster frowned slightly. "Don't you want to return with me?" "No, I just don't want to leave Chaos City and the restaurant." Mia shook her head and smilingly said to Rankster, "As for the reason, Father should have the answer after tasting all the dishes on the menu." Rankster was embarrassed as he looked at the amused smile on Mia's face. He didn't expect this girl to recognize him. Although Mamie Restaurant's food is indeed very delicious, as a giant dragon, gaining a greater power and seeing the bigger world and sky out there, are what we should be doing. We can't stay in a comfortable place for too long, Rankster said gravely. So, that's why you left back then? For a bigger sky? Mia asked him in return instead. Rankster. I don't want unparalleled power and I don't like the vast and strange sky and world out there, I like Mamie Restaurant. I like everyone here. I like the dishes that boss makes and every child who comes to the ice cream shop, Mia said with a serious and convincing expression. This is the life I want to have. I want to stay here. This is my decision. Rankster looked at Mia, as though he had seen that stubborn maiden again. The past events surged in his mind and his heart wavered too. Yes. What was the point of getting stronger? The women he loved were all gone. He was left all alone. There was no one else to drink with him even when he was invincible. Boring, boring. Father, you can stay in Chaos City for some time. I guess you will like it here too and we can get to see each other every day, Mia smilingly said. All right, I will stay here for some time. Rankster nodded in agreement. She had been pinned with great hopes ever since she was young. They all wanted her to become somebody, but nobody asked if she would like to become that somebody. I want to stay behind too, Elizabeth said. Mia and Rankster turned to look at her at the same time. Mia's eyes lit up as if she already knew something. Meanwhile, Rankster was a little perplexed. He said to Elizabeth, Elizabeth, you want to stay in Chaos City too? Elizabeth looked into Rankster's eyes and gravely said, No, I mean I want to stay in Mamie Restaurant too. This time, she wanted to voice out her actual thoughts too. It was Rankster's turn to be dumbfounded now. Both his precious daughters were going to stay in Mamie Restaurant as servers? The daughters of Rankster, the princesses of the Frost Dragons, were going to stay in Mamie Restaurant and be servers? Great, sister. You'll continue to stay with me. Mia had already run over and hugged Elizabeth's arm happily with a bright smile. Elizabeth patted Mia's hand, but her gaze was still fixed on Rankster. She had already killed Fox and was the candidate for the next chief of the Frost Dragons. On their way to Chaos City, Rankster had already discussed the matter of her taking over the Frost Dragons with her. He intended to groom her to take over the position of chief in the next 2 years. Yes. Nobody cared if she was willing to do it again. They simply thought that she was suitable to take that position. Hence, she wanted to tell her father that she wasn't willing today. At least, she wasn't willing now. Compared to that icy frost throne, she much preferred Mamie Restaurant's comfortable and warm ambience. Those gazes that coveted that icy throne made her unable to eat and rest in peace, but here, she could open her heart and be herself. This was the life that she looked forward to and missed. Once, her goal was to find her father, and now this goal was achieved. She wanted to stop for some time and stay here with Mia and all the people who cared about her. Rankster looked at Elizabeth, the daughter who made him proud, the daughter who inherited his powerful gift and combat ability. He seemed to have never understood her either. You may stay if you want to. Rankster nodded, going along with her wishes. He found out how much Elizabeth had suffered when she was looking for him after he returned from the ice sheets at the extreme north. He couldn't make her carry on his ambition and will anymore. Mamie Restaurant was really a weird place. It made both his daughters refuse to go home. Mia hugged Elizabeth's arm and said to Rankster, Father, do you have a place to stay? If you do, I will go back to sleep first with sister. See you tomorrow then. I do. Rankster nodded and wanted to continue speaking. See you tomorrow then. However, before he could speak, the two maidens went away hand in hand and turned into an alley at the side. These two girls. Rankster chuckled. He put down his hand slowly and gently murmured to himself as he looked at the ring in his hand, Don't worry. I will protect her for the rest of her life. Mother left this ring to me, so I'm taking it with me. Mia ran back and took the ring back from Rankster before hugging him gently and smilingly said, "Good night, father." Then, she ran away again. Rankster looked at Mia's back and chuckled. This girl's character was livelier than Elizabeth. He couldn't get used to it yet. However, this feeling was not bad. He felt he had just gained a mischievous sweetheart. Mia hugged Elizabeth's arm tightly and softly said, "Sister, I have been worried about you." "I'm fine. I simply went to look for father." Elizabeth shook her head with a smile, but she sensed Mia's intention and felt warm inwardly. Mia took out the key to open the dormitory's door. After she pushed open the door, there was a loud bang and confetti burst out. "Welcome home, Elizabeth." Elizabeth and Yabimia stood at the door and looked at everyone standing in the living room with a cake smilingly, in a daze. "Wow, it's a surprise." Mia's eyes lit up. "Everyone." There was a faint gleam in Elizabeth's eyes. She suddenly felt a little cold and her nose felt a little stuffy. So, apart from Mia, there were still so many people who cared for her and doted on her. "It's cold outside. Come on in." Gina stepped forward, took Elizabeth's hand and pulled her into the room. Mia closed the door and there was only warmth in the living room. "You have been gone for so long and I missed you." Gina gave her a hug first. Her body felt soft and comfortable. Babla stepped forward and said with a blush, "Although I'm not good at expressing myself like this, I will still give you a hug." Elizabeth hugged her back with a smile and softly replied in her ear, "Thank you." Hannah went forward and said with a chuckle, "Big sister Elizabeth. I'll treat you to some liquor later. I have the best rum." "Sure." Elizabeth nodded. "Big sister Elizabeth, it's great that you are back." Jane went forward to hug Elizabeth with a sincere smile too. "Good girl." Elizabeth patted Jane's head smilingly. Although Goldihorn didn't say much, she had always been well behaved. Angela was last to come forward. She gave Elizabeth a hug too. However, after hugging her, she softly mumbled, "She looks cold, but she feels soft and warm. It's so comfortable." So big." Elizabeth's body stiffened slightly. Angela took a step and smilingly said to Elizabeth and Mia, "Mia, I feel so scared sleeping alone at night. Can I sleep with both of you?" "Sure." Mia nodded innocently. "No way." Elizabeth rejected her decisively. "All right. We'll sleep together when we get the chance." Angela shrugged. She didn't insist on it. "Let's eat the cake now," Gina said. "Where did this cake come from?" Mia asked with surprise. She had been learning to bake cakes recently, but she wasn't successful yet. "So, who made this cake?" "Me." Gina raised her hand and smilingly said, "I made it with ice cream." "It's an ice cream cake. We only had very little time, so we came up with this idea." Angela interrupted. "It looks delicious." Hannah swallowed her saliva. Mia suppressed her laughter as she said, "Boss would want to hit someone if he heard that." Yes. There was still a place that expected her to return and people who still missed her. Mag let the two of them in and poured 2 glasses of warm water for them as he said, "You guys came early today, so take a seat first. You can look through the menu first. There are some new products released recently. Tell me if you have something you'd like to eat later." Elizabeth nodded with a smile and sat down at a table close to the kitchen with Yabimia. She flipped open the menu and there were indeed a few more dishes added to it. There were soup dumplings and shaved noodles, which didn't look bad. Mia recommended dishes to her. "You can have a steamer of soup dumplings and a bowl of shaved noodles. They taste great together." Mag went into the kitchen and looked at the sisters through the glass window. He was thinking that there should have been a touching father and daughter reunion last night. He had thought that Rankster would bring Mia away. After all, he was a proud fellow. How was he going to allow his daughters to work as servers in the restaurant? However, not only did Mia stay, Elizabeth returned as well. Even though he didn't know what happened, Mag could already imagine Rankster's angry expression. To the restaurant that was short on manpower, Elizabeth's return was naturally a good thing. Connie was busy with the restructuring of the Twilight Forest and Camilla went back to be the queen of the vampires. They were in need of people. Oh yes. Sister, do you know that Annie has become even more awesome recently? She has already become a very famous illustrator. Mia got up and took a Little Mermaid picture book from the counter. Elizabeth looked at the exquisite picture book and said with amazement, "Annie drew this?" Mia nodded and replied, "Yes. This is just one of them. She has drawn many of them and they are selling very well. They are in short supply every day." Elizabeth flipped through the picture book and praised it. "It's awesome." During breakfast, Mag announced Elizabeth's return officially. "Let's stay for supper after tonight's dinner service to celebrate Elizabeth's return," Mag declared. Amy munched on a bun and nodded as she said, "Sure. I'll try not to sleep after supper." Mag said to all of them, "There's something else. You guys said you wanted to register to be part-time teachers at Hope School previously. Have you guys thought it through? Who among you wants to register? I'm going to check on the school's construction process after the breakfast service, so I can hand in the list then as well." "I do." Gina was the first to register. "I'm afraid I will spank those disobedient little ones uncontrollably, so I can give 1 to 2 lessons per week. I need to use the rest of the time to calm my emotions down." Babla raised her hand up. Hannah said she wanted to teach the children how to brew rum. This was a very professional skill, even Mag hadn't learnt everything yet and had to ask Hannah to confirm. Shirley wanted to be the teacher of archery. As an outstanding elven archer, she was very happy to impart her archery skills to the children. Mia was very enthusiastic, but she couldn't figure out what she could teach the children, even after thinking for a long time. Hence, she could only give up. "I think Annie could teach the children drawing. She can draw so well, so the children will definitely like her," Mia suggested. Everyone's gaze landed on Annie, who was munching on the soup dumpling. Annie halted and looked up at all of them with an agape mouth and a befuddled expression. "Annie, do you want to be a little teacher?" Mag asked her smilingly. With Annie's current drawing techniques and skills, it was more than enough for her to be an arts teacher. Annie was taken back before she shook her head and replied with sign language, I don't know how to teach others to draw." Forget it then. Let's wait till Annie wants to teach others how to draw." Mag nodded with a smile and didn't insist. Annie still couldn't talk now, so this was a great obstacle to teaching. During breakfast service, Mag saw Rankster again. He was dressed like the rich merchant from yesterday. Mag could sense a faint hostility from him. Obviously, he minded that Mag got his 2 daughters to work as his service staff. However, even though he was a little hostile, he kept eating the soup dumplings. It didn't affect his appetite at all. "Seems like I need to go get a house first. It needs to be big to accommodate both the children. Of course, I stayed here for the kids and not for the food." Rankster walked out of Mamie restaurant and narrowed his eyes comfortably when the sunlight fell on his face. Line up, eat breakfast, watch his children work. He never seemed to have such an easy life before. "What should I do next?" Let's go chat with an old friend. Urian seems to live over there. He was merciless the last time we fought." Rankster mumbled as he walked towards the magic potion shop. He needed some time to get used to this retirement lifestyle. Mag made a trip to Hope School. The 4-story teaching building was already being built. The Night Elves construction team had demonstrated their professionalism. Hundreds of elves with specific jobs worked energetically and rapidly builded. Many teachers on their break were watching from afar and they made amazed sounds every now and then. The elves were elegant and sophisticated in many people's impression, but it was easy to neglect their gift in construction. If they had gone to see those exquisite buildings behind the textile factory's walls, they would be shocked beyond words. Mag confirmed the construction's process with the construction team's leader and ascertained the time to move all the kitchenware and furniture. He also made sure that the construction team could evacuate in time and wouldn't affect the school's reopening. Then, Mag asked a teacher about the location of the principal's office. "Please come in." Mag heard a familiar voice as soon as he finished knocking. He pushed open the door and entered. Luna looked up from a pile of documents and showed an expression of surprise when she saw Mag come in. She put down the pen and stood up. "Mr. Mag, what brings you here?" "I came to check on the construction's progress and discuss some matters with you." "Did I bother you?" Mag asked smilingly. "It's fine. I'm just ascertaining some construction items." "Please have a seat here." Luna asked Mag to take a seat while she made a cup of tea for him. Babla said that she wanted to be a tutor for spatial magic. However, she can only have 2 classes a week. "Oh right, she is an 8th tier spatial magic caster." Gina says she wants to be a music teacher. She is fine as long as the lesson timing doesn't clash with the working hours of the restaurant. Shirley wants to teach the children archery. Is there an archery class in the school? Hannah wants to teach the children how to brew wine, but wine brewing is something even more difficult than cooking. On top of that, brewing rum requires a very large area and the process is also very complicated. I find it a little unsuitable for children. Mag listed what the ladies said. Luna replied with a smile, "We were still stressed about not being able to hire good magic casting teachers. If Babla is willing to come, there's no problem with 2 lessons a week. After all, spatial magic casters are very rare. Gina sings very well, and if she could be a music teacher, I can arrange 4 large lectures for her each week. This way, I doubt it would affect her work arrangements. We do have archery classes, but we are indeed short of teachers. It would be great if Shirley could come. However, we don't have a wine brewing career on the campus. Hannah is an excellent brewer, but I'm afraid we currently do not have the space and sufficient teaching capabilities to support this profession." Mag nodded. It was just as he expected. He asked, "In that case, when can the ladies go for the test?" "Tomorrow will be the last day for all the teachers' tests. Do you think 9 in the morning would work?" Luna asked. "Sure. I'll let them know to go over for the test tomorrow morning. I shall not disturb you at work." Mag stood up and left. Luna stood in her office and watched as Mag disappeared into the long corridor, before closing the door and returning to her seat. Now that the school was opening, many administrative matters had been stacking up and that made her hands full. Thankfully, there were many outstanding experienced teachers among the teaching staff, so most of the school's opening matters were more or less settled. The name list for the first batch of students was also out. There would be more than 2,300 new students joining Hope School this semester. Teacher Luna looked rather tired. Should I send her a helping of the Buddha jumps over the wall later? Mag thought to himself as he rode out from the campus. She must have been exhausted as her face was pale and the dark circles under her eyes were quite bad. Mag could see all the effort she put in running the operations of such a big school alone. If it was not for her passion for children, how could such a weak lady complete such a complicated and difficult task? Mag was grateful to Luna and respected her. She once protected Amy's young and pure heart in the most difficult times. Therefore, he was willing to do many things for Luna, including helping her set up Hope School to give something else other than food to these children. "I'm so bored. So this is what it feels like to be queen. This is so boring." Camilla sat at the tallest tower of her castle, enjoying the sea breeze as she swirled the red wine in her glass. A long, black dress hugged her long legs, which were propped up on her rocking chair, and as she rocked gently, her full blossom swayed with her. "It is rather boring. Therefore, I intend to go to Chaos City. I'll leave everything here to you, Dracula said with a smile as he appeared beside her. No. Uncle, please bring me along. Camilla jumped up from her chair and looked at Dracula with pleading eyes. Are you thinking of leaving your throne behind to become a service staff member? Dracula looked at Camilla with a strange expression. Although she had not told him why she went to Mamie restaurant to be a service staff member, this seemed like she was a little masochistic. In that case, are you intending to forego the delicious blood to eat grass in Mamie restaurant? Camilla mocked. Dracula was filled with awkwardness as he retorted, it's a fish. Although it is shaped like a fish, it is still an eggplant and is in the same category as grass. Camilla corrected him. On top of that, I was the one who cut the eggplant. Dracula thought for a while and said with a nod, all right. Since the peace accord has been signed, I doubt anyone would cause any trouble right now. Let's have some fun in Chaos City. Let's go. Right now. Camilla said excitedly. After staying in the Demon Islands for the past few days, Camilla had been drinking several lousy types of blood that were making her lose her taste. She was even starting to miss Mag's taste. Oh, it's the taste of his cooking. Besides, she should return to retrieve the photo stone that belonged to her. After all, she was someone with status right now. As the chief of the vampires, how could she allow her dark history to be left in the hands of a human man? The thought of that photo stone made Camilla blush all of a sudden. What are we having today? Let's have hot pot. Royal Mother. Let's go eat. In the grand hall, Vanessa pulled Syndra's hand and said expectantly, Mana Hot Pot restaurant has pretty good hot pot too. It's opened by Boss Mag and Big Sister Rena. The food there is cheap and the place is spacious too. If we go there earlier, we might not have to queue and might even get a private room. Syndra's face was no longer pale and she looked more energetic too. She held Vanessa's hand and said with a smile, all right, all right, all right. I'll leave it up to you. We can have whatever you want. Hee hee. You have no idea how much I was craving for hot pot back then, but my tooth issue was not resolved, so I could not eat it. Now that my teeth are fine, Uncle Abraham has eaten so many hot pots with me that he's sick of them, Vanessa said with a smile. He happens to be arriving in Chaos City today too. We'll have hot pot together later. Abraham, who just reached the door, was stunned. His expression changed and he wanted to retract the foot that had already taken a step into the hall. Uncle Abraham, you've arrived. Vanessa had already seen him. She went up to him with a smile and said, tonight, we're having insanely spicy hot pot, let's go. I can't do it. Abraham waved his hands quickly. Just super spicy then. Her Majesty has just recovered. She cannot eat food that is too spicy. Why don't we order the clear soup? Abraham suggested seriously. The double-flavored hot pot is my bottom line. Vanessa shook her head. She gave this to you. Irina frowned as she looked at the assault rifle in Mag's hands. She realized that things did not seem simple and she looked at Mag investigatively as she asked, how did you persuade her? I have to make things clear, nothing happened between us. Mag raised his hand and said, I used a free lifetime supply of red braised pork voucher in exchange for it, with another dish added in. You're going to make her red braised pork for the rest of your life? You didn't even promise me that. Irina pouted. Mag. This deal was Mag's proudest deal so far. He used red braised pork in exchange for a long-range, lethal assault rifle. If it was someone else, no amount of red braised pork would be able to seal the deal. Of course, that was not what women liked to hear. One would be sick of red braised pork sooner or later, but I will make you anything you want to eat for the rest of our lives. Mag put away the assault rifle and took a step forward as he looked intently into Irina's eyes. Ah, this is too cheesy. Go on, go on. Irina shooed him away in disdain as she turned to walk into the room, but she was still unable to hide the smile on her face. I'll go out then, turn in early. Mag pulled out his mask and went out through the window. He changed into another outfit, and so he did not go out dressed as Alex. Instead, he wore a simple, black combat outfit that was similar to X's. It was made by the system and could keep him warm. Mag walked on the streets of Chaos City with the assault rifle. It was deep into the night, so there was barely anyone on the streets. Occasionally, there would be a few drunkards staggering home. Over the past few months, the Gentlemen's League had grown in size and had become Chaos City's largest-scale mercenary organization. This was due to the gentlemen's passion for the Board of Gentlemen, and in a short time span of a few months, the security in Chaos City had greatly improved. Now the crime rate was very low. That had made Chaos City a city that crime syndicates shunned. After all, the number of gentlemen waiting hunting for criminals way surpassed that of their prey. Mag turned a corner and witnessed a group of gentlemen beating up a drunk demon who tried to flirt with a middle-aged lady forcefully by the road. Other than that, he did not meet any other bad guys. Is this the power of the gentleman? Not bad at all. Mag carried the assault rifle and leaned on a large tree nearby as he watched a few gentlemen chatting while sitting around a fire in an alley. They were the ones who protected the peace in this area, deterring the crooks from committing crime. The gentlemen were discussing the latest happenings at the bathhouse in the city's southern area, which succubus had the best skills, which ones are picky, and how to not appear as though it was their first time there. Mag listened for a while and resisted his urge to join in the discussion. He turned to leave and went out of Chaos City. After leaving the city, Mag summoned Ozzy and they went to the Magic Beast mountain range. He heard from customers over the past couple of days that some ferocious magic beasts on the mountain range had been killing all the mercenaries who went up the mountain to pick herbs. These included 7th tier and 8th tier mercenaries. Since Mag could not find suitable targets in Chaos City, he had his sight set on the magic beasts on the mountain range. Mag did not have any compassion for those ferocious magic beasts. He would treat it as he was getting rid of danger for those mercenaries. There were howls and growls of magic beasts coming from the mountain range in the night as though the bloodthirsty beasts had awakened. The Magic Beast mountain range right now was considered deadly to the mercenaries. The magic beasts had left their nests in search for food in the mountain range. Other than experienced and powerful mercenaries, most mercenaries would choose to leave the Magic Beast mountain range before the sun sets. If they were unlucky, they would lose their way in the mountain range and fail to leave before nightfall. When that happened, they would turn from hunters to prey. Rose's mercenary squad was a little out of luck today. They had accepted a herb collecting mission and would only have to find the required herbs at the periphery of the mountain range. However, they happened to meet a 4th tier ironback bull. Everyone had given all they had and were all injured before they managed to escape from the 4th tier magic beast. However, they had also unconsciously barged into the depths of the mountain range. On top of that, they got lost, as they were in a rush to flee for their lives, and after walking around for a few hours, they were still stuck in the mountain range. Team leader, the thorny shrub is up ahead. It has poisonous thorns. We can't go over, Monkey told Sivir as he jumped down from a tree. He was limping a little and his pants were stained with blood. I've also taken a look on this side. There hasn't been any traces of mercenaries' activities for a while. We have probably entered the danger zone. Sam walked back with a grave expression. Upon hearing that, the members of the Rose mercenary squad all did not look too good. The danger zone in the Magic Beast mountain range meant that they would lose their lives. They could already imagine how things would end if they were to stay in the danger zone at night. The Rose mercenary squad was merely a small mercenary group. Their team leader, Sivir, was only at the 3rd tier. After escaping from the Ironback Bull, Sivir was also injured and had 3 broken ribs. Her combat capabilities had decreased significantly. None of the 8 members of the mercenary group were confident of surviving the night in the danger zone, even if they were all fine. Now, any 4th tier magic beast could just kill them all. In the depths of the Magic Beast mountain range, 5th tier magic beasts could be seen everywhere. Get into the search formation. We will retreat back into that cave we were in just now. Guard the cave entrance. We will leave this place when day breaks. SAHDR grabbed her chest as she instructed them as calmly as she could. As the team leader, she had to be calm and make the correct judgment and decisions. Running around the Magic Beast mountain range in the darkness was akin to courting death. The members all responded positively and got ready to move. Roar! Just then, a tiger's roar came from the dense vegetation ahead. The sound waves swept through the trees like a gust of strong wind, shaking the mercenaries and making their ears ring. Monkey and Sam, who were not as strong as the others, fell straight to the ground as they threw up blood. The thick trees were knocked over and uprooted. A large white tiger standing at 5 meters tall and more than 10 meters in length appeared in front of the Rose mercenary squad. Its golden eyes were like two bright lamps as it looked down on them. A 7th-tier golden-eyed white tiger! Dennis exclaimed as his face turned pale. Pale. After locking in its target at 15 kilometers away, the magnifier auto-focused to make the image very clear. After that, Mag saw a very wild woman that was like a sexy cheetah. She was dressed in a red and black leather tube top. She had a pair of lean and long legs and a familiar boomerang. Isn't that SAHDR? What are they doing here? Mag was rather surprised. The giant tiger pounced out and its horrifying aura suppressed the Rose mercenary squad, making them unable to even move a single step. On top of that, Dennis' shout just now made everyone's hearts sink. The 7th-tier magic beast, the golden-eyed white tiger, was one of the most ferocious magic beasts on the Magic Beast mountain range. It was extremely territorial and was also very aggressive towards mercenaries. The mercenaries who went up the mountains would usually not end up very well when they ran into a golden-eyed white tiger. On top of that, this magic beast is an extremely good fighter. Even 7th-tier powerhouses would find it a headache, much less this small group of mercenaries who were all injured. No one could save them in this mountain range. Bring Monkey and Sam into the cave. I'll stop it. SAHDR clenched her teeth together and twisted open a medicinal vial filled with red liquid. Immediately, her body glowed red and her dwindling aura suddenly shot up. She let out a low shout, grabbed onto the boomerang at her waist, and swung it towards the golden-eyed white tiger. The boomerang drew a red arch in the sky, flying towards the tiger's eye. It was so fast it was just a shadow. In the meantime, SAHDR stepped to the side and pulled out a repeater crossbow, aiming it at the tiger. This was the strongest blow SAHDR could currently deal. She was able to temporarily recover her strength with the help of the medicine and she had to buy some time for the team. SAHDR pulled the trigger decisively, causing the desolate Rose mercenary squad to feel a sense of hope. Let's go! Dennis put Sam on his shoulders and started running towards the cliff in the distance. SKOL picked Monkey up and also turned to run towards the cliff. Go ahead, I'll stay here with Captain. Scott held his sword in both hands without taking a step back as he rushed towards the golden-eyed white tiger. When the golden-eyed white tiger saw the boomerang, its golden eyes lit up. The boomerang barely scraped past the tiger's eyes and was reduced to nothing after a ray of golden light shone on it, as though it had not existed. Meanwhile, the arrow SAHDR shot out landed on the tiger but it did not even pierce through its fur. It did not even leave a mark on its body. SAHDR saw the boomerang disappear instantly and felt her heart ache. However, there was more fear that gripped her. The effects of the madness potion could only last for 3 minutes. However, even if SAHDR regained the peak of her 4th tier, she was still incomparable to the 7th tier magic beasts, which made her feel suffocated. However, she had no choice. She turned back to look at her members who were running for dear life. She swung out her backup boomerang and went straight towards the dense vegetation beside her. She had to lure this magic beast away to buy even more time for her members. This was the only thing she could do now. However, just as she moved, the golden-eyed white tiger waved its paw and broke a tree that was 1 meter thick and the thick tree flew towards SAHDR like an arrow. SAHDR froze and her eyes widened as the tree enlarged in her vision. She did not try to dodge or resist because it was pointless. She did not feel much fear in the face of death. She just felt sorry for letting her members down and guilty for not being able to bring them back safely. Captain! Dennis and the others paused in their tracks as they watched the giant tree fly towards SAHDR. They all shouted in desperation. The end of Scott's long sword was glowing red as he tried to chop the tree. However, the golden-eyed white tiger easily broke the long sword into tiny pieces. The golden-eyed white tiger looked at them in mockery as though it was looking down on a colony of ants it was teasing. How dare this group of pathetic fools intrude into its territory? At that moment, the sky was lit up by a shimmer of light. In an instant, it pierced through the tree that was right in front of SAHDR. The thick trunk shattered into pieces immediately. The golden-eyed white tiger suddenly let out a terrified howl as it waved its huge and sharp claws in front of it, while at the same time attempting to run away. However, the light was too fast and it smashed its stone-hard paws into bits and pieces, before striking right through its head. The power of the force sent the golden-eyed white tiger flying backwards before it crashed to the ground. It twitched a little before laying completely still. Just then, a thunderous explosion came from afar. Sound travels slower than light. The Rose mercenary squad watched, dumbfounded. Such a powerful 7th-tier magic beast, the golden-eyed white tiger that was feared by mercenaries, was dead just like that? SAHDR's mouth hung wide open. She breathed heavily as she watched the motionless tiger. Her forehead and back were drenched in cold sweat. The effects of the madness potion were over. The intense pain from her broken rib made her furrow her eyebrows. It was the first time she felt so close to death. When she came to her senses, she was weak all over, as though her energy was completely sucked dry. She fell, sitting on the ground, limply. Thank you for saving us. SAHDR thanked the mystery person loudly. It must be someone powerful for that golden-eyed white tiger to be killed in a single shot. The others from the Rose mercenary squad all came back to their senses as well. They were glad to have brushed past death and quickly kneeled to the ground as they thanked whomever it was gratefully. Thank you for saving us. Silence. After a very long time, it was still silent in the dense forest. SAHDR and the others exchanged glances and helped each other up. That person who killed the golden-eyed white tiger did not appear, as though he was never there. If it was not for the carcass of the golden-eyed white tiger laying on the ground, they would have thought it was all a hallucination. Captain, why didn't that person appear? Dennis asked with a quiver in his voice. SAHDR did not understand as well. She leaned against a tree weakly, as her injuries were rather severe. The medicine they had with them was all used up and she did not know if she could pull through the night. Just when everyone was feeling uneasy, a large pair of wings covered the sky above them. A low voice came from above, saying, "What are you doing here with your mere abilities? Aren't you afraid to lose your lives?" Come to speak of it, the Rose mercenary squad had fought alongside him before. He rather liked SAHDR, the leader who liked to wear animal skins and shorts. Of course, it was because of that pair of healthy and beautiful long legs. Mag looked at her ample breasts. Oh no, it was her injured chest. Her ribs should be broken and there should be internal bleeding. Her injuries were serious and she wasn't going to hold on for long if she wasn't treated in time. Mag frowned slightly. Initially, he wanted to point out a route for them and get them to leave at dawn, but after seeing SAHDR's injuries, she wasn't going to survive till dawn. The Rose mercenary squad didn't have any medics. It was a terrible formation. Mag didn't know any healing techniques, but he had some healing drugs on him. Go down. Mag ordered. Ozai spread its wings and the trees below it immediately fell down everywhere. It revealed a space that was about 100 meters wide and Ozai landed on the ground steadily. Mag jumped off the griffin's back and walked towards SAHDR. SAHDR looked at Mag with an agitated expression. She supported herself with one hand on the tree trunk. There was starlight glistening in her eyes. Alex. That godlike man in the legends. Although he was wearing a mask, the purple-striped griffin was unique. And that scary strike that killed the golden-eyed white tiger left an indelible mark in her heart. Finish it and I'll bring you guys away from here. Mag took out a red medicinal vial and threw it to SAHDR. SAHDR caught the medicinal vial in a daze before she gratefully said, "Thank you for saving us." Mag looked at SAHDR, who was trying to bow, and coldly said, "You'd better not move if you don't want your bone to pierce through your organs." SAHDR's movements halted and she sat back on the ground with her back against the tree trunk. She twisted open the medicinal vial gently and poured the red magic potion into her mouth. The pure healing potion glided down the throat smoothly and the exuberant vitality burst out. The injuries on her body could be seen to be healing and her broken ribs were healing as well. The Rose Mercenary Squad looked at Mag respectfully from afar, while looking at SAHDR worriedly at the same time. SAHDR tried to buy them time by drinking the madness potion and attacked the golden-eyed white tiger without any care for herself, so her injuries were the worst. 3 short minutes later, SAHDR opened her eyes and stood up gradually. She bowed to Mag deeply and offered a money bag with both her hands. She gratefully said, "I am SAHDR. I thank you for saving our lives on behalf of the Rose Mercenary Squad. Please allow me to offer you all our money and our service." Killing the golden-eyed white tiger, saving everyone from the Rose Mercenary Squad and giving her an advanced healing potion that saved her life from the brink of death, SAHDR felt that he had given her a new lease of life. Even though she was a woman, she had always been self-reliant. Her admiration for powerhouses was no different from a man's. In her mind, Alex was her idol and becoming his subordinate to repay his kindness was also an honor. "You want to be my maid?" Mag looked at SAHDR with a weird expression. SAHDR was taken aback as well. She suddenly realized he seemed to have mistaken her intentions and a blush rose up on her cheeks instantly. However, perhaps, he needed a maid? If she became Alex's maid? Even though it was a little embarrassing, it wasn't hard to accept. After all, he had saved her life. "I'm willing to serve you." SAHDR folded her hands in front of her and bowed slightly, already taking on the role of a maid. The Rose Mercenary Squad's members looked at one another in stunned silence. The sudden change of character in their leader, who was fierce and had fought with a tiger, shocked them. How did she suddenly become someone's maid? However, they kept their mouths shut after they thought of the other party's identity. Becoming Lord Alex's maid didn't seem to be an embarrassing matter. Instead, it was a kind of honor. Mag jumped onto the griffin's back and his voice turned cold again. "I'll bring you guys away from here." SAHDR looked at Mag and opened her mouth, but she still couldn't make herself ask if she was his maid or not. She wasn't some woman who threw herself at men easily. Moreover, her subordinates were watching from the side. She still had her pride. SAHDR regained her usual composure and ordered the Rose Mercenary Squad. "Let's go." All of them got onto the purple-striped griffin. They had never expected that they would one day get on board this majestic purple-striped griffin and be escorted by Alex. SAHDR couldn't help asking as she looked at the golden-eyed white tiger's corpse, "My lord, that golden-eyed white tiger is a 7th-tier magic beast. It has already produced a phantom core. The tiger skin is also a precious item. Do you want to take them?" Phantom core. Mag pondered. He had read in books that the magic beasts would evolve into advanced magic beasts after they reached the 7th tier and they would produce a phantom core. It was an important ingredient for magic casters to make magic potions and spell formations. It was rather precious. Mag flicked a glance at SAHDR and the Rose Mercenary Squad. He thought that they were rather miserable on this trip and had almost lost their lives, so he said, "I'll give you guys 15 minutes and you may take whatever you can with you." SAHDR and the rest looked ecstatic. A 7th-tier magic beast was nothing to a big shot like Alex, but it was a treasure to a small mercenary squad like the Rose Mercenary Squad. If it wasn't for the fact that dragging the whole white tiger back would be too overboard, they didn't even want to waste a single piece of meat. The phantom core, the tiger's skin, the tiger's teeth, the tiger's claws. Everything was a treasure to them. Scott stopped Dennis, who was about to work on the tiger's *nis. He used his gaze to gesture at the griffin and softly said, "This doesn't look very good." "Why doesn't it look good?" "Apparently, the *nis of the golden-eyed white tiger has a marvelous effect in that area. It can fetch a high price easily, so I intend to offer it to that lord to repay his kindness in saving us," Dennis said bluntly. Scott said in exasperation, "Aren't you hinting that he is incapable in that area then? We could be left behind if that lord is pissed off." "That's true." Dennis scratched his head, but he still cut off that big thingamajiggy. "Then, let's sell it. I heard someone sold it for a high price of 200,000 previously. This one looks better, so its price will be even higher." Mag didn't reach out. He simply faintly said, "It's yours now." "This." Sivir looked at Mag and then at the phantom core in her hands. This was an extremely precious phantom core of a golden-eyed white tiger. Its value was above 1 million copper coins. She couldn't see the expression underneath that mask, but judging from his calm tone, this phantom core wasn't important to him. However, why was he giving it to her so easily? Perhaps, it was a gift to his little maid? "So, he is already treating me like his maid?" Sivir pursed her lips. She suddenly felt that the phantom core in her hands was rather hot. She wanted to throw it away and yet wanted to hold onto it tightly at the same time. She didn't know what to do at that moment. After holding onto the phantom core in a daze for a while, Sivir finally looked up and said to Mag with a blush, "Master. I didn't say I want you to be my maid. It's just a simple gesture." Mag retracted his gaze. He stood on the griffin and looked up at the sky at a 45-degree angle. His lips under the mask had already curved up uncontrollably. This maiden was rather interesting. However, wouldn't it be interesting to keep a little maid like her who resembled a cheetah? Sivir looked at Mag and expressions of astonishment, disappointment, joy, sadness, and loss flashed across her face before she blushed. She wanted to find a place to hide herself. It was so embarrassing. She already treated herself as his maid, but he hadn't even thought about having her as his maid. Never mind about the offer, but she was even rejected. The only thing that consoled her was that her subordinates were all busy with processing the golden-eyed white tiger's body. They shouldn't have heard her calling him master nor heard his reply. The cold night wind howled in the woods, but it still felt hot when it touched Sivir's face. Everyone soon finished the dismemberment. They took all the valuable items like the skin, teeth, and claws. It's a pity that the flesh and bones are wasted. They can be sold for a lot of money, Dennis murmured with pity. "Let's go." Mag patted the purple-striped griffin gently and it took off and flew towards Chaos City. It left the Magic Beast mountain range that Sivir and her subordinates deemed as a natural chasm, in an instant. Sivir covered her face and crouched to the side during the journey. Her injuries were almost healed, only her ribs needed some more time to completely heal. However, her heart was hurt. It would take a long time for her to recover. She flicked a glance at the figure sitting at the very front with an aggrieved gaze. Was she really that bad? Am I not even qualified to be his maid? Why am I still thinking about becoming his maid? Sivir frowned, feeling that something was wrong with her. The purple-striped griffin stopped in front of the city gate and Sivir regained her wits. She got off the griffin together with the others and bowed to Mag in gratitude. "Thank you for saving us. As long as you need us, the Rose Mercenary Squad will be at your service anytime." "I got it." Mag simply left a faint sentence before the purple-striped griffin took to the air and disappeared on the horizon. All of them looked at the sky enviously for a long time before retracting their gazes. Standing on the solid ground in front of the city gate, all of them looked at one another before letting out a cheer that celebrated them getting out of danger in one piece. They were once so close to death. If Alex hadn't appeared suddenly, they would have become that golden-eyed white tiger's dinner now. However, All of them not only returned to Chaos City in one piece, but they had even obtained all the precious materials from the golden-eyed white tiger. We're rich. We're really rich this time. Yes. Just this white tiger's skin alone can easily sell for 500,000 copper coins. The tiger's teeth and claws are also excellent materials for making weapons. They, too, can fetch a high price. This tiger's *nis can fetch a high price too. I'll go look for old Wang tomorrow and he will definitely give us a good price. The Rose Mercenary Squad's members went through their spoils with an excited expression. They had earned more this trip than what they could in the whole year. In the trade of mercenaries, the coexistence of risk and profit was an unchangeable rule. Weak mercenaries like them could only do some small missions around the exterior of the Magic Beast mountain range. Sivir held onto the Phantom Core with a distracted mind. She only regained her wits and said after some time, "There's one more Phantom Core here." Monkey was already awake. He leaned against Skol and smilingly said, "Captain, Lord Alex gave you this Phantom Core, so keep it for yourself." "Yes. If it wasn't for you, Captain, we wouldn't have lasted until Lord Alex appeared. We cannot take this Phantom Core." Everyone chimed in. They weren't tempted by the Phantom Core's high selling price. Sivir looked at all of them quietly for a moment before nodding and accepting the Phantom Core. "I won't take a cut from the profits of the other items then." Mag only spent an extra 20 minutes with this small episode. He was very willing to assist others in such small matters. Furthermore, they were someone he knew. This bullpup assault rifle killed a 7th tier magic beast from 15 kilometers away with one shot. Mag had a better understanding of this assault rifle now. Mag turned the assault rifle into the silent mode and tested a few more shots in the Magic Beast mountain range again. There were other small mercenary squads like the Rose Mercenary Squad that were stuck in the mountain range, and Mag resolved some problems for them. However, Mag only pointed out a way for these mercenary squads that he didn't know and then left right away. Finally, Mag found a 10th tier striped soul leopard. He locked onto it, aimed through the sight at a 30 kilometers distance and pressed on the trigger. The bullet fired silently. The sharp bullet head pierced through the space and made a wave before flying towards the striped soul leopard. However, that soul leopard seemed to have sensed something and its forward dashing figure paused. It became a faint shadow and pounced backwards. The bullet brushed by its body and shattered the giant rock which was behind it. It's indeed a 10th tier magic beast. Is it really so hard to hit? Mag fired another 2 shots. The soul leopard transformed into 3 faint shadows and ran towards 3 different directions. The bullets shattered 2 of them, but they both missed the actual leopard. Meanwhile, that soul leopard dashed into the mountain range and disappeared. Mag didn't continue to pursue it. He had no intention to kill that soul leopard. He simply wanted to test the gun. A 10th tier magic beast's sense of danger was very acute. The person using the gun needed to have a more accurate perception. "I still need more practice." Mag put away the gun and got Ozzy to return to the restaurant. The maximum lethal distance for 7th tier and above was 30 kilometers. Its power decreased obviously after 30 kilometers. Secondly, the gun sight that looked very technologically advanced, would automatically measure and calculate the environment. It replaced the job of the observer and made the job of solo combat more simple and efficient. However, when your target was a live object and a powerhouse, an outstanding sniper still had to learn how to anticipate, make the bullet travel over tens of kilometers and accurately hit the brain of the target. Depending on his powerful spiritual power and vast combat experience, Mag's anticipation was stronger than the majority of people. However, this experience needed a high intensity of practice and couldn't be achieved in a day or two, so he still had to do more practicing. To Mag, who was half a native, the strongest feeling that this gun gave him was, the times had changed. This was an assault rifle that could kill a 10th tier powerhouse. A normal human could depend on the support, find a suitable sniper location, find his target with the sight and press the trigger to complete the kill. Moreover, locking in the target with human sight, without the assistance of the rifle, would make it even harder to detect. 30 kilometers was already beyond the Rodog Palace's area of alert. Underground city. It really makes one look forward to it. Mag landed on the balcony lightly and gazed at the ground. He wondered how that world under the ground looked like. Cyberpunk? Or a utopia? Even though Xi looked like a robot without any emotions, given her obsession with the red braised pork, she had revealed a bit of her humanity. It was more likely that she was putting on a prim and proper front. Furthermore, there were no obvious mechanical limbs on her and she didn't display any extreme ideology. Overall, he could still interact with her normally. Apart from this gun, what did the world in Underground City look like? Mag was increasingly curious about that. Mag wasn't in a rush to return to his room to rest after showering, instead he went to his study to write an article. He had deemed himself as an amateur food reviewer in his previous life and believed that his level was way above those food reviewers who could only use beautiful but meaningless words. However, thinking back on the words that he had used previously, he almost couldn't contain the urge to go back and beat himself up. Those words that he used back then had all become his retribution now. He gave up on his domain of being a harsh reviewer. Mag had transformed into a culinary tutor now. It was much easier to make the words look lively and easy to understand, making the readers want to try it out for themselves, buy the ingredients and cook it themselves, rather than dissing it. After writing the article, Mag read it out loud a few times, corrected a few details and words, and copied it out once before he considered the work done. Putting down the pen, Mag looked out of the window. The sky was beginning to turn bright and the morning sun dyed half the sky red. It was a new day again. He put away the article which was meant for the 10 magazine presses that he had promised 2 days ago. This time, he was going to teach them how to cook red braised pork. The eggplant with garlic sauce was a vegetarian dish, while the red braised pork was a meat dish, so they were both suitable as a meal for one. Of course, it would be perfect if a soup dish was added to them. The Buddha jumps over the wall was too extravagant and not suitable for normal families to cook daily. It would hurt if they made a mistake at home with so many high-end ingredients. It had to be a simple soup like the tomato and egg soup, which was easy to learn and delicious. Mag himself craved the tomato and egg soup after thinking about it. After a cold shower, he felt energetic instantly. Changing into his chef's suit, Mag went downstairs to prepare for breakfast. Mag didn't get the recipe of the tomato and egg soup from the system, but he felt that he could make such a simple dish himself without the system. In the world of tomato and egg soup, there has always been a controversy of frying the eggs first or frying the tomatoes first and then adding the eggs in. Mag had tried both methods before, and neither was better than the other. It all depended on the individual's preferences. After frying the eggs with pork lard, the soup would taste better and richer. And, pouring the eggs into the boiling soup before turning off the fire and scrambling the eggs, would give one a smooth egg drop soup. Its texture would be excellent and it would taste sweet and sour. Only children got to choose. Mag decided to make the tomato and egg soup with both methods. On the breakfast table, everyone looked at the 2 big bowls of egg drop soup in a daze. "Father, is it a new dish?" Amy asked Mag. The others looked at Mag too. Mag nodded. "Yes. I suddenly had an idea this morning. This is my first attempt. I used 2 different methods. Please try it." The birth of every new dish needed brave souls to be its testers and provide their valuable suggestions. Amy pointed to the egg drop soup and said, "Its color looks beautiful, so it should be quite tasty. I want that one which looks as pretty as a flower." "All right, I'll scoop a bowl for you." Mag scooped a bowl of egg drop soup for Amy. The whirls of egg in the soup had indeed made this soup look better than the soup in which the eggs were fried. "I think this bowl smells nicer, so I'll try this bowl." Mia picked up the ladle and got herself a bowl of tomato and egg soup. Everyone made their choices and the 2 bowls of soup were soon all taken. Hoo hoo! Amy blew on the spoon gently before feeding it into her mouth. The sweet and sour taste spread in her mouth instantly, making her eyes light up. The smooth egg drops made a round in her mouth before gliding down her throat, leaving behind a faint aroma. "It's so delicious," Amy said before drinking the soup 1 spoonful after the other. She made it look so delicious that it piqued the others' appetite. Mia held onto the bowl and blew at it gently before taking a sip from the bowl. The rich aroma of the egg spread in her mouth and the aroma of the pork lard and fried egg, together with the sweet and sour tomatoes, woke up the taste buds that had been resting for the night. It was a scrumptiousness that was irresistible. The perfect savory taste, tasted comfortable even in the morning. Mia finished half a bowl before she could say with amazement, "The fried egg soup is delicious too. I never expected that egg drop soup could be made this way as well." Ferris looked at Mag with admiration. Even a simple egg could be transformed into amazing dishes in Mag's hands. The 2 egg soups received unanimous good reviews from everyone. Mag had expected it, but he still felt very happy about it. Mag rejected their enthusiastic requests to make another helping. Mag smilingly said, "It is more than enough to have a bowl of soup for breakfast. Moreover, this is only my first attempt. I will make more for all of you after I come up with a tomato and egg soup that I'm satisfied with." Mia blinked her eyes and said, "Boss, I can help you taste them for the next few days. I can eat a lot." Mag glanced at her and nodded with a smile. After the breakfast service, Mag received a message from Xi, "Tomorrow night. Grilled meat. 2 people. Sure. 10 p.m., at my restaurant," Mag replied to her message. Putting down the communicator, a smile appeared on Mag's face. Apart from Xi, he was going to meet the second person from Underground City. Actually, this wasn't their first time meeting each other. It was that mech driver at the ice sheets previously, who wastefully self-detonated her battleship at Thulhu. However, Mag rather admired her fearless spirit. Come to think of it, it was a combat style that was more suitable for a strapping man. He had already prepared the drinks. Even if she was professionally trained, after downing a few bottles of Mao Tai, she should at least tell him something, right? He had given up on Xi. That woman was too tight-lipped. The underground city was too interesting. He desperately needed to know more about it. As for setting the venue at the restaurant and not intending to hold back, it was his small calculation. If he interacted with Xi and her companion with the identity of Alex, the other party would definitely put their guard up against him. This was not conducive for deeper interaction, let alone getting more information from them. Hence, he set the location at the restaurant and prepared the grilled meat and excellent liquors. Once they got comfortable, they would let down their guard. Then, he simply needed to chit-chat and talk about his interesting stories to get useful information from them. Even though he had never dabbled in business before, this might be the so-called businessman genes. Be it becoming a god, or experiencing a high-tech world, Mag wanted to visit Underground City. The key to this door was held in Xi's hand, so he naturally wanted to look for some other side doors as well. However, before he started, he still wanted to find out more about that unknown world. For example, what punishments would he face if he was discovered when he snuck into Underground City? Lantist was forced to be stowaways as a whole and had successfully become part of the Underground City, but he didn't know how the other stowaways would be handled. Of course, this was the worst-case scenario. Judging from Xi's attitude, it was almost impossible for people on the Norland continent to get into Underground City through normal channels. Irina and him weren't killed, nor did they have their memories erased, because both parties had established a good working relationship and he had a certain power to negotiate with the Underground City. He spent 5 million copper coins at the system to set a surveillance system that spread all over the Norland continent. Currently, he had found a few mysterious space nodes which could be connected to the Underground City, so he intended to check them out when he was free. Good luck, ladies. Mag bade farewell to the ladies who were going to take part in the tests at Hope School. Angela stood at the door and asked Mag, "Boss, you really didn't suggest to the principal to set up a charm grooming department, did you?" Mag looked at Angela, who was leaning forward to display her beautiful curves and charm, and shook his head reluctantly. "We haven't developed to the point where we can set up classes to groom socialites. The market isn't mature enough yet." Angela blinked, failing to understand Mag's words. "I heard you have set up a succubi support association recently. You have raised the prices of massages in Chaos City? It has caused quite a bit of grievances from the gentlemen." Mag changed the topic. "The economy has already developed for 100 years and is going to welcome the next 100 years, but these men still want to use the price from 100 years ago to enjoy the myriad of services now. Isn't this ridiculous?" Angela said matter-of-factly. Mag thought for a while, and yet he couldn't find any means to refute her. "What kind of myriad of services?" Mag asked curiously. Angela looked at Mag and her gaze got increasingly evil. She got closer to him gradually and whispered breathlessly into his ear, "Boss, I can teach you if you want to learn." This woman indeed had a fatal attraction to men. She had displayed her racial gift to the maximum with her natural seductiveness. "Come on. Don't be gentle with me," Mag solemnly said. "I'm not that kind of person. I'm just curious about new things." Angela took a step back, pressed her lips together and said, "Ha! Men are all like this. You say one thing but do another thing in bed. You sound like you know men very well. However, you haven't touched a man before, right?" Mag looked at Angela judgingly. As someone who had been playing the field for a long time, he could differentiate if the woman was simply boasting or she was indeed experienced. This could prevent himself from being cuckolded too many times. Angela blushed, which was rare. Her eyes flickered and she embarrassedly said, "Says whom? I'm very experienced." "Being experienced in this area isn't something to boast about or be proud of. Girls should be reserved in certain areas," Mag said faintly. "Yes. I'm a good girl." Angela tilted her chin up. She was very confident about that. "So, don't pretend to be experienced in the future." Mag knocked on her head. "That hurts." Angela growled and stared at Mag angrily. She knew she was hoodwinked again. Mag smilingly said to her, "No matter how many stories you've listened to, it's all others matters. Who says that succubi have to seduce men? Didn't you have a good time at the restaurant? You also can support yourself and live with dignity." Angela looked at Mag in stunned silence when she heard that. She felt touched suddenly. What did this man understand? She came with the dream of changing the succubi's fate and returning the succubus race to its former glory when she left the Demon Islands. Perhaps, no one would care about a succubus' little dream and believe that the succubi, whose reputation was in the tethers, could turn their lives around. However, she became a Mamie restaurant's server and worked here for several months. She had supported herself successfully. She didn't have to depend on men, or seduce anyone. She worked hard, completed her mission and lived with dignity. This was the life that she wanted her people to have. She wanted them to see that succubi could also live like the other races. Even when the racial war had ended for 100 years, the total number of succubi on the Norland continent now didn't exceed 10,000. More than half of them lived in Chaos City. Only living in this relatively equal city could the succubi receive certain respect and not worry about being imprisoned by others. The succubi had already lost their ambition and even consciously tried to forget their race. The gathering of succubi would only attract greater discrimination or cause a bigger crisis. It wouldn't change anything. This was also the reason why Angela could only come up with a relatively beneficial organization that could barely control the pricing for the succubi. To the succubi who were manual workers, this was something that could elevate their standard of living, so they had taken part in it actively. However, as soon as Angela brought up the idea of changing their way of life to change their destiny and move forward, They would give her a perfunctory attitude. It was easier to describe it as a racial inferiority mindset. After all, the succubi was once a race that was on par with elves, and they were a very spiritual race. Obviously, they only have to change and then they can leave this slump and live respectfully. Why are they not willing to do so? Angela said with a frown, expressing her devastation over her people's degeneration. Have you thought that you have only told them how to do it, but you didn't show them that they really could have a life that is completely different from their current life, one which is better and more respectful? Mag shook his head and continued on after a pause. There must be some of them who have attempted to change in the past 100 years. Perhaps, they had bumped into a wall, or perhaps, it led them into a worse situation. Hence, they chose to give up and maintain the status quo. I believe you have a much deeper understanding about the prejudice that this world has on the succubi. Angela had a thoughtful look after hearing that. After a moment of silence, she looked up at Mag. What should I do then? Many people have told them how to turn over a new leaf. I bet every man has given them a speech after they do their deed. They would have been more precise and logical than you. Instead of telling them how, why don't you show them how? Let them know what a succubus can do after she leaves those pink houses. If you can't change the deep-set prejudice that this world has for the succubi, it will be very difficult for them to walk out of those pink houses and begin a normal life, Mag said calmly. It sounds like you are very experienced. Angela had a weird expression. Mag solemnly said, I have never visited that kind of place before. I am now already a server and I have also talked to them personally, but they were still unmoved, Angela said helplessly. People who are used to earning fast money, won't want to earn a meager wage with their brawn. Mag shook his head. Moreover, apart from Mamie Restaurant, it's very hard to find restaurants that would hire succubus service staff. Then, tell me what else can I do? Angela looked at Mag and asked. Why don't you make some videos? Hey! Mag looked at Angela, whose mouth was agape and whose face had a confused expression, and explained, it's not the kind of video that you are thinking of. Then, what kind of videos can we do? Angela asked. I have been thinking about a problem lately. How can I spread delicious food to a greater audience, change the diet structure of all the races on the Norland continent and allow more people to get to eat scrumptious food? How? Well, other than writing a column in magazines, I intend to make a movie. Movie? What is that? A movie is a visual and audible art form. I intend to use the photo stone to shoot a story and then use the technique of projecting in to show it. Of course, it will be free for all to watch. Mag explained it simply. Mag already had the idea of making a movie ever since he made the teaching videos. After all, an excellent media platform like the video would bring a greater experience to the audience than the words and picture books. However, a simple teaching video was too boring. The audience would be limited no matter how good he was. But, if he inserted a culinary tutorial into a great storyline perfectly, it would be spread to an even wider audience and he would naturally gain more fans. So, what should I do? Angela was still befuddled. You have to become an actor, like those drama actors. Mag gave her a simple example. I know drama. Angela seemed to get it, but she soon shook her head, but, I can't act. No. You have a gift. Just like that experienced lover seen earlier, you have already surpassed most young actresses, Mag said with conviction. Who are the young actresses? That's not important. Then, how shall I work with you? Climb on top of me and move by yourself. Mag rolled his eyes and said, I'll ask you to try it out after I finish writing the script. Oh. Angela nodded. Although she had no idea what Mag was going to do, Angela had an unexplainable trust for him. As if he would never fail in what he strived to do. Perhaps, she would really become a good actor? Angela left and Mag sat next to the floor-to-ceiling window with a glass of water next to him. His eyes were glued to the projector screen where a Chinese ghost story was playing. He wasn't a professional in making movies. But, he had a rich movie collection from Earth. Game of Thrones, The Lord of the Rings, Harry Potter, How to Train Your Dragon, oh, perhaps not How to Train Your Dragon. After all, it would be easy to trigger a racial war if he got the dwarves to go ride the dragons. However, Mag's first thought was not those fantasy blockbusters, but a relatively simple but interesting story. Firstly, he had to be certain that the motive of him making a movie was to increase his fame and allow more people to learn to cook from him at the same time. Secondly, it was to let Angela twist the people's prejudice against the succubi around with this movie and set an example for the succubi. Of course, it would be great if they could earn a profit. Who would hate to earn money? Of course, other than those people who like to only flex. After all, the people in this world couldn't understand Chinese mythology at all. Hence, Mag decided to do an adaptation. The story background would be the era of the Devil's invasion. Xiao Qian, the vixen lady, would become in Xiao Qian the succubus. The mountain devil would become the antagonist controlled by the devil, and Ning Ketichan, the scholar, would become Mag Ketichan the human chef. A journey to save the world, a love that transcended the races. Fate had brought them together. Stay tuned for the 12th February. It would be in time to gain some popularity from the Devil's Invasion, and it had the core love and revenge of a Chinese ghost story. Moreover, it could teach the audience how to cook perfectly as well. Mag thought that this idea was perfect. Mag was excited, so he took out a notebook and wrote down his thoughts quickly. He already had the rough plot written out by the morning. Even though Mag had watched many films before, he wasn't a professional script writer after all. His dialogue lines were awkward. He felt awkward even after copying a lot of lines from a Chinese ghost story. Seems like I have to take time to chat with Vicky. She's a professional in this area. Mag put away his notebook and turned off the projector before going into the kitchen to prepare for the lunch service. For the next 2 days, Mag continued to refine the script, the background story, the dialogue, and scenes. As a science geek and one of the participants of the battle at the ice sheets, Mag believed that he had a firm grasp on the background story, the point of view and the storyline. However, he was rather hapless at the dialogue and details. He had a headache over how to elevate the relationship between the succubus and the chef and how to let the audience sympathize and identify with the entire succubus race. Goodbye. Mag stood at the door and watched the girls leave after work. After locking the door, he sent Xi a message: the charcoal is already burning bright red and the meat is sizzling over the grill. The stray cats next door are already climbing onto the walls. When are you guys coming? Immediately. The communicator vibrated and Mag received Xi's message immediately. Indeed, everyone has a weakness. Mag's lips curved up as he put away the communicator. There was a little stove on the table and the charcoal was already burning red. However, the kebabs were still marinating on the plates at the side. There was a transparent glass bottle that was warming on the stove. The red liquid wasn't boiling yet, but the fruits and spices were floating in the liquor and its aroma had already begun to spread. It was early spring and the snow hadn't fully melted yet. Having a bottle of warm red wine at this time was indeed rather relaxing. Irina sent the 2 children to bed first. Mag intended to meet the 2 ladies from Underground City alone tonight. Brr. It's so cold. Isn't spring coming soon? Why is the weather still so cold? Vicky stomped her feet in front of the opera house and blew into her hands, warming her cold hands up. The opera troupe had no performances during these past few days. The boarding around the theatre, which had almost completed its renovation, hadn't been removed yet. Most of the surrounding shops had been rented out gradually, so the environment looked dim, as they were undergoing renovation. She had changed into the costume that Mr. Hades sent her yesterday. She was a little overdressed, but she was going to meet her idol, Alex, so she still chose this dress. Even though it was a man she couldn't get, she still wanted to leave a good impression with him. XI sent her the information 2 days ago, saying that she was going to meet Alex. Her message was rather official, so Vicky thought that it would be a rather important and formal occasion. After all, Alex was the mightiest powerhouse on the Norland continent, a being above the 10th tier. Even in Underground City, he would be a man close to the pinnacle of power too. However, she couldn't quite understand why he chose to meet so late at night. Perhaps, Alex is simply too busy? He's so powerful after all, so he'll need to handle many affairs on the Norland continent, just like my grandfather, Vicky thought, as she was reminded of that strapping figure standing on the purple-striped griffin's back. That sword strike had impressed her. I'm so nervous. How should I introduce myself later? The maestro of the Black Cat Opera? No, no. I can't expose my identity. It will get me summoned back to Underground City by my grandfather. The granddaughter of the Underground City's marshal? No, no. It sounds like I'm showing off my family background. I'll get kidnapped easily. The bangle on Vicky's wrist blinked, just as she was deliberating. She turned and saw that invisible battleship hovering above the opera house. After looking around to make sure that no one was looking over, she leaped onto the opera house's roof and stepped into the open battleship. The battleship retrieved its ladder afterwards and it instantaneously disappeared above the opera house. Vicky stepped into the cockpit and asked XI, who was still wearing her red and black combat suit and sitting in the pilot's seat, "Big Sister XI, has something important happened? Why does Alex want to meet us suddenly? He suggested the meeting. I'm not sure about his motive yet." XI turned around and saw the opulent dress on Vicky. Her eyes lit up slightly, but she soon regained her composure. "Did he ask you to invite me specially?" Vicky was a little surprised. "Yes." XI nodded. "This was specially requested by Mag. He wouldn't be." Vicky bit her lower lips with a shy expression. She didn't expect him to still remember her. XI glanced at her weirdly. XI had no idea what she was feeling shy about, but with her personality, she didn't ask and simply faintly said, "You know about the rules of Underground City. No matter what he says, you have to keep the secret." Vicky was a little spooked by XI's gaze, so she nodded seriously. She knew very well that this young commander that her grandfather admired was famous for obeying the rules. This was also why she was chosen to become an observer. Along the way, Vicky and XI chatted about the interesting things that happened in Rodur recently. XI listened mostly. She seldom spoke, only asking a question or two every now and then. They reached Chaos City in a mere 10 or so minutes. Vicky walked to the window. She looked at the huge black city underneath and smilingly said, "I came to Chaos City last year and even stayed for 2 weeks. I heard there's a Mamie restaurant here that is very famous. The boss named Mag makes scrumptious dishes and even my neighbor, Mr. Hades, learned to cook from him. Mr. Hades' cooking is great. I didn't expect Alex to live here as well." XI looked at her and pondered seriously. The 3 people that she talked about seemed to be the same person. 3 in 1? He had never expected that the person driving the mech on the ice sheets in the extreme north and wanted to die together with the great old one was this little kitten. Miss Black Cat, Vicky, the maestro of the Black Cat Opera. Vicky had a look of surprise and admiration at the same time. She was surprised when she saw XI land the battleship at Mamie Restaurant, and her eyes lit up again when she saw the man who came out after XI knocked on the door. The man was tall and strapping. He was wearing a black and white chef's suit. His handsome face and warm temperament attracted her attention. Alex. She had ascertained this man's identity almost immediately. Only this man would have such an otherworldly temperament in this world. She saw the restaurant behind him. The closed restaurant was still brightly lit, but only one table was filled with all kinds of ingredients. It was as though he was waiting for the arrival of his guests. There was no one else in the restaurant. No boss, no service staff. Only this man who was wearing the chef's suit and welcoming them like the host. So, he's also Mag. Vicky was slightly taken aback. She felt that she had discovered some huge secret as she mumbled, "Mag Alex." Vicky wasn't some innocent maiden who knew nothing. She was born into a top family in underground city. She had received the best education since she was young, and had great wisdom. She had collected some information about Alex's identity recently. Alex's detailed background was among them. Of course, it was mostly common knowledge, like Alex's first name that was seldom mentioned, Mag. And this name was very famous in the culinary world recently. Mag, the chef of Mamie Restaurant. A man who was deemed to be the world's top chef. Alex, the #1 powerhouse on the Norland continent, the chief commander of the Allied forces, the absolute main force that sealed the devil. The two men who seemed to be totally unrelated, merged as one at this moment. Mag and Alex were the same person. Mag Alex. Was this godlike man the top powerhouse on the Norland continent or the top chef on the Norland continent? Vicky's mouth got wider. She suddenly felt her so-called interesting life was nothing in front of this person. During the time when Alex was missing, Mag even took part in the birthday banquet of the king of the Roth Empire and received the title of the best chef of the banquet. This man who was once persecuted by the Empire's royalty, appeared in front of his enemies in that manner, and he won their respect and admiration with another method. Moreover, he didn't do anything bad to the food to take his revenge. What a dramatic story it was and what admirable behavior he had. Vicky had witnessed his powerful strength before. His fight with the giant dragon was unforgettable. What made Vicky even more curious was how did he master his amazing culinary skills. Perhaps, he was also a time manager? Come in. Mag quickly controlled his expression and stepped out of their way with a smile. Although he was shocked that the person who came was Vicky, the situation was still manageable. Anyway, she still didn't know he was Hades. Otherwise, she wouldn't have this expression right now. Initially, he was still thinking about how to probe this newcomer. Now, it seemed like he could simply skip over this step. I saw Mag and Vicky's changes in expressions and felt that it was funny, but she didn't show any emotions on her face. She strode past Mag and entered the restaurant, walking towards the table with the stove. The restaurant was very warm and a liquor aroma was in the air. It was the taste of warmth. There was a rich aroma in the faint intoxication. The aroma came from the bottle that was on the grill. The red liquid was already boiling. It was a combination of the aroma of spices and the aroma of fruits. They created an exquisite aroma together. Hello, I'm Vicky. Vicky introduced herself to Mag cautiously with a blush on her face. Her hands at the sides of her body were clenching her clothes subconsciously. She didn't know where to look and it was as though she was a fan who was meeting her idol for the first time. Hello, Miss Vicky. Please come in. Mag was slightly perplexed. The girl that he knew was rather outgoing. Why was she behaving so coyly now? Vicky nodded and then entered. Smells go good. The liquor's aroma in the air instantly attracted her attention. Her gaze instinctively landed on the boiling glass wine flagon on the grill. She had been drinking with Eofi frequently. Even though her alcohol tolerance wasn't high and she would get drunk easily, she gained a lot of knowledge about alcoholic beverages. This wine was excellent. Although she had never seen such a drinking method in Rodu, it wasn't a rare method in underground city. Warming up the red wine in winter was a very common practice, especially in cold places. It could ward off the cold. Boiling it together with spices would make the wine even more fragrant. Vicky was considered a knowledgeable person, but she was still impressed when she smelled the liquor's aroma. The brewers at Underground City had already researched the composition of alcoholic beverages molecules and perfected them through all kinds of technological methods. They could already control the absolute standard of the alcoholic beverage's taste. Perhaps, it was just because of this absolute standard that the alcoholic beverages had lost their souls. Meanwhile, she smelled a soul in the red wine that was boiling on the stove. There weren't too many high standards from the machinery. Perhaps, it was more rugged, but it brought an unusual form of surprise. Together with the perfectly added spices and fruits, it was an excellent wine that made people slightly intoxicated as soon as they smelled it. Have a seat and a glass of wine to warm up. The grill is already hot and it's perfect for grilling meat now. Mag closed the door and walked over. He picked up the flagon and poured 2 glasses of wine for Vicky and Xi. The red wine liquid swirled gently in the glass and the heat brought the aroma up. Thank you. Vicky sat next to Xi and received the glass with both her hands. She already felt very blissful. Alex actually personally poured wine for her. Wasn't it awesome? Xi nodded and took the glass too. She instinctively swirled it. Mag placed a few beef kebabs on the grill and the meat made a sizzling sound. Oil seeped out from the fatty beef and glistened. The aroma of the beef began to spread just after flipping them a few times. Vicky held onto the gas and looked at Mag, who was flipping the kebabs in a daze. This man, who flew in the sky and slayed dragons, was actually so gentle and careful when he was flipping the kebabs. This was such a mesmerizing contrast. The aroma of the roast meat greeted her. The transparent fat glistened on the beef like little crystals and the sauce was carefully and uniformly spread over it. The grilled beef began to have a sheen and it looked exquisite and delicious. Vicky had eaten a lot of grilled meat and many of them were even made by famous chefs. They were plated on delicate plates and garnished intricately. They needed to be tasted elegantly with a knife and fork. Now, she was holding onto a bamboo stick with 5 cubes of 3 cm wide beef. If you wanted to taste it, you had to grasp the beef kebab and bite off the topmost cube. It didn't look like an elegant way to eat it. However, Vicky wasn't embarrassed by it. After all, she was no longer that pampered young mistress living in a high tower. She was the Miss Black Cat that wandered around the Norland continent for 1 year. She had brought her troop members digging in the fields for missed-out potatoes when they had no food. Roasting some wild game that they caught occasionally over burning firewood was also a common occurrence. She wouldn't resist beef kebabs that were skewered by these clean and smooth bamboo sticks and precisely cut with great cutting skills. The only thing that made her have reservations was whether she should eat more elegantly in front of Alex. However, she hadn't eaten much tonight and after watching Mag grill the meat and smelling the increasingly fragrant aroma as the meat got cooked, she really couldn't hold herself back as she held onto the kebabs now. Howl! She ate 1 beef cube with each bite. Vicky's tiny face lit up immediately. As soon as the beef entered her mouth, its slightly charred surface melted over her palate along with the garlic-flavored sauce. Garlic usually tasted sharp and overwhelming, but the flavor of this garlic sauce was very mellow and delicious. As she chewed, the meat juice exploded in her mouth and the tender beef melted away too. The rich aroma of the meat dashed out and the scrumptious taste blossomed in her mouth. She could sense the taste buds cheering with every chew. She felt as though she had fallen into a piping hot meat pool that was surrounded by raging flames, while a huge piece of grilled meat was placed in front of her. Should she choose to escape? Or continue to taste the scrumptiousness? Unquestionably, she chose the latter. Phew! Vicky let out a breath of hot air and put the bamboo stick down before saying to Mag with amazement, "This grilled beef is so delicious." Delicious! It had completely exceeded her expectations for scrumptiousness. Just the beef kebab alone had defeated all the chefs that she had tried food from before. They had lost very utterly and completely. Even when they had specified that they had already grasped the essence of food with molecular gastronomy. However, they seemed to have forgotten that delicious food needed a soul. They had forgotten to add a hint of life and heat when they retrieved the food from the cold machinery to configure. Even when the texture and taste had reached the best level, it was difficult to give people shock and emotion. However, the grilled meat that Mag made was different. Be it watching the beef slowly get cooked over the grill by its own fat, or feeling the warm air coming from the stove, or watching Mag flip the kebabs with his skilled and beautiful technique, they all infused a soul into the beef. This was a beef kebab with soul. It was warm and delicious, and eating it was blissful. Vicky had already picked up the second kebab. She bit off a beef cube and closed her eyes, feeling the blissful sensation that burst out in her mouth. The corners of her lips had already curved up as she revealed a happy and relaxed smile. How amazing was that? She actually got into a state of relaxation in front of a Norland continent native, in front of Alex, whom she respected and was meeting for the first time. However, this feeling felt rather comfortable. Is it really so delicious? Xi looked at Vicky and retracted her gaze. She looked at the kebabs on her plate. She had wanted Mag to make a helping of red braised pork for her, and she kept her stomach empty for the entire day before she came. Now, she intended to try this kebab first before she made her decision. Of course, she was definitely going to have the red braised pork. After all, she had the free for life card for red braised pork, so she shouldn't waste it. After picking up a kebab and putting it in her mouth elegantly, Xi's cool eyebrows raised up and her expression lit up too. The mouth-watering sauce on the surface of the beef and the juices of the meat flowing in her mouth instantly awakened her taste buds. She only had to chew lightly to provoke an explosion of meaty juices within her mouth, which combined with the sauce and condiments to create an incredible flavor. She felt as if a fireball had exploded in her mouth, transforming into countless smaller fireballs that were stimulating her palate. The more she chewed, the better it tasted, so she naturally chewed faster and faster. It was an interesting cycle. She chewed until she swallowed the meat into her stomach, yet the pleasant taste still lingered in her mouth. Xi's usually expressionless face had a rare uncontrollable smile. Without any words, she bit off another cube of beef. She closed her eyes and chewed slowly as a happy and satisfied smile appeared on her face. She no longer needed to be reserved about her usual tensed-up expression. What amazingly delicious food! It was comparable to the red braised pork. It was another kind of tasting experience. Of course, the red braised pork still occupied an important position in her heart. She opened her eyes and asked Mag, "Do you have rice? Barbecue with rice?" She knew how to enjoy her food. Mag flicked a glance at her and nodded. "I'll go get some for you." It wasn't just rice. There was also a pot of red braised pork kept warm in the kitchen. Mag scooped up 2 bowls of rice. He came out with the red braised pork and placed it in front of Xi. Anyway, he couldn't get this woman drunk. He even suspected that he would be the one to get drunk first if he seriously tried. Red braised pork. Xi's eyes lit up and she began to look at Mag with a gentle gaze. Sometimes, she had to admit that this man indeed does make one feel comfortable. It was perfectly done. He made you feel well taken care of, as if he had already known what you were thinking, or perhaps, he had already anticipated it in advance. Xi placed a bowl of rice in front of Vicky and made an introduction to her at the same time. "This is the red braised pork. It's very scrumptious too." She continuously ate 3 pieces of red braised pork with a mouthful of rice each. She then picked up the remaining beef kebab at the side and bit 1 cube off. She chewed carefully before swallowing and then eating another mouthful of rice. It was impolite to watch others eat, but Vicky and Mag couldn't help watching Xi eat. Vicky felt it amazing as this was the first time that she had seen Xi eat. Meanwhile, Mag was watching Xi with an appreciative gaze. Xi ate with an intellectual and rigorousness, like a nerd. She had to chew 12 times for every mouthful of red braised pork, 18 times for every mouthful of rice and 20 times for every cube of beef. However, she would control the speed of her chewing, as she would swallow every food item precisely at the 6-second point. "Why are you staring at me?" Xi looked up and met Mag's gaze. "I'm just a little curious. Do your armed forces specially train you guys at eating too?" 6 seconds for every type of food, Mag said frankly. "No." Xi's answer was short and sweet as ever. Oh. Mag, too, didn't elaborate on that. After all, it was rude to stare at a maiden eating and it wasn't worth mentioning. However, Vicky couldn't stop herself from laughing. Her head was down with a piece of beef in her mouth, but she couldn't chew because her lips were upturned. She knew that the underground city's Galacticos didn't have training in eating. After Mag's reminder, she suddenly realized why she felt that Xi ate with a weird tempo. So, it was her OCD of 6 seconds for every bite. Xi looked at the two of them weirdly and continued her tempo of eating red braised pork, rice, beef kebab, and rice. Vicky soon controlled her laughter and then tried the red braised pork. Then, she was a lost cause too. This red braised pork is simply too delicious. It's soft and sweet and melts in the mouth. The rich meaty aroma suddenly spreads in my mouth and I'm completely bowed over. Vicky was amazed inwardly, but she simply couldn't stop. She also began the tempo of one mouthful of rice followed by one mouthful of red braised pork. Mag munched on the kebabs and drank the wine casually as he watched the two ladies eating happily, feeling a little exasperated. One big and one small. They were both rather cute. However, he had invited them here to improve on their friendship by eating some kebabs and drinking some wine, so that he could get some information out of them. Seeing that they enjoyed their meals so much, he felt bad to interrupt them. Around 10 minutes later, the bowl of rice and the pot of red braised pork were empty. Xi and Vicky put down their chopsticks, still wanting more. The red braised pork is so delicious. Mr. Alex, your culinary skill is simply amazing. Vicky looked at Mag with stars in her eyes. His powerful strength made people admire him, while his great culinary skill made one want to marry him. This man was simply too charismatic. Even though his looks were extraordinarily good-looking, he was handsome and manly. He had a noble and gentle temperament, and a low and attractive voice. His perfect figure under his chef's suit made one lust after him too. A being who could slash a great old one with a sword, but his charisma increased even more when he put down his long sword and picked up a chef's knife. Vicky thought that those aristocratic men in Underground City were completely incomparable to him. Even the one that her family had chosen for her was far inferior when compared to him. Thank you for your compliments. Have more beef, please. Mag placed a serving of grilled beef kebabs and mutton kebabs onto Vicky's plate. Thank you. Vicky nodded with a smile. Her gaze was soon attracted by the piping hot kebabs. Xi, who shared her bowl of rice and pot of red braised pork with Vicky, was obviously not full yet. Fortunately, there were still plenty of beef kebabs and mutton kebabs and Mag gave another serving to her again, so she concentrated on eating the kebabs and drinking the warm red wine occasionally. Vicky held onto the warm glass and took a sip of the red wine. The red wine that was heated up had a warm texture. It also had a tinge of fruit and spice aroma. It was sweet and warmed her heart. Vicky's eyes lit up. It was better than any other alcoholic beverages she had had before. It tasted just like some kind of juice. But there was a long and lingering aftertaste after swallowing it, just like a beauty caressing your neck. Seductive and mesmerizing. Soon, a blush appeared on her face. Her alcohol tolerance was rather bad. She usually didn't drink and she couldn't stand the stimulating texture of most liquor. However, this red wine gave her a warm and comfortable sensation. It was a little intoxicating and a little addictive. Together with the kebabs, a glass of red wine was soon finished. Mag poured another glass for Vicky and said, "Is Miss Vicky going to stay on the Norland continent for a long time? You sound very adept at the Norland continent's common tongue." Xi looked up at him and then at Vicky before pondering for a moment. She then retracted her gaze and continued to eat the kebabs. Mag noticed her small gestures. He remained unfazed but he felt it funny inwardly. This was the current situation. He knew about Vicky's identity as the maestro of the Black Cat Opera, but Vicky didn't know that he was Hades. Perhaps Xi didn't know that his cover in Rodou was Hades, but she knew that he had a tavern in Rodou and he had sponsored Vicky's opera troupe. Furthermore, his current cover for his identity wasn't very secure. If Vicky came to the restaurant during the day, she would see the stand-up at the door and Annie's work and she would be able to deduce his identity. All of them had covers, so they weren't afraid to be recognized. After all, who could guess that the maiden who sang, danced, and rapped on stage, was not only the maestro of Black Cat Opera, she was also the young mistress of a certain big family in underground city. She even drove her battleship and self-detonated it at Thulhu, and performed a great escape on the ice sheets in a mech. Mag simply felt amused, so he intended to keep that cover and test out this maiden, who obviously had a low alcohol tolerance. Vicky was slightly taken aback. Looking at Mag, she pondered for a moment before smilingly saying, "Yes. I have been on the Norland continent for over a year, and I have even set up an opera troupe. Black Cat Opera. Have you heard of it before? So, Black Cat Opera is set up by you. I heard that it's the best opera troupe on the Norland continent," Mag nodded and said, showing an admiring and shocked expression. However, looking at it rationally, Black Cat Opera had no fame at all before it moved to Romo Street. Even now, it was still a very niche existence. But, Mag actually said that their Black Cat Opera was the best opera troupe on the Norland continent. This praise touched her immensely. She was excited. And, a little shy. However, it was as though something precious to her, which had been doubted and laughed at by others all along, had finally received the praise and appreciation it deserved. This acknowledgement made Vicky like Mag even more. "Yes, I have. Some said that it's the future of the Norland continent's opera. Looking at you now, I think they're right." Mag nodded honestly. There were most probably only 2 opera troupes on the Norland continent now. Compared to that sleep-inducing opera troupe, Black Cat Opera's professionalism had exceeded it. Vicky looked at Mag, feeling extremely touched. She almost wanted to marry him. To her, given Mag's identity and status, he didn't have to lie to her, so what he said was the truth. She had met many difficulties since she set up Black Cat Opera. She had heard many rumors and demoralizing words and suffered many defeats. Meanwhile, right now, the man in front of her, the #1 powerhouse on the Norland continent, had said that Black Cat Opera was the future of the Norland continent's opera troupe. She believed him. "It's hard to find a friend who appreciates me. Let me toast you." Vicky raised her glass. Mag clinked his glass with hers. Vicky finished all the wine in the glass. Mag also finished all the wine. He then placed a few more beef kebabs in front of Vicky. "Don't just drink. Have some grilled meat too." Vicky had already slumped over the table before Mag could finish talking. Mag. They had just started to be friends and had enough drinks. He was just about to ask her questions and she got drunk so quickly. Mag felt cheated instantly. Xi flicked a glance at Vicky before looking at Mag, who froze. Her upturned lips showed her excellent mood, but she didn't stop eating the kebabs. Mag sighed inwardly, but he still went to get a blanket and covered Vicky with it. It turns out that some maidens might look easy to fool, but, in fact, weren't that easy to fool. Of course, it's another story if you want to cheat them of other things. Mag poured a glass of red wine for Xi before sitting down again to eat the kebabs and drink the wine. He didn't intend to ply Xi with the wine. The alcohol content of such boiled red wine was almost negligible. To Xi, it was no different from drinking plain water. He might be the one to get drunk if they really wanted to drink. "Why did you pretend not to know her?" Xi picked up a bamboo stick as she asked Mag, "Did you know her identity when you rendered her assistance previously?" Xi's sharp gaze locked onto Mag as she asked him solemnly. "Frankly speaking, before today, I always thought you were going to bring a big guy over. I even specially prepared 2 crates of Mao Tai." Mag smiled before looking at Vicky, who was slumped over the table. "I helped her because I really admired her talents. Furthermore, helping her is also an investment. I paid the money because I believed she could give me a higher return. She had that capability. Seems like a coincidence." Xi retracted her gaze. The lie detector told her that he wasn't lying. It might be an affinity too. Mag shrugged. Xi picked up another kebab and said, "She has also signed the non-disclosure agreement. It's impossible for you to get any information from her. Did any of your rules forbid you guys from making friends with the people on the Norland continent?" Mag asked smilingly. Yes. Xi nodded. Mag knew that the rules were set by Underground City to maintain their secrecy, but he still felt slightly uncomfortable. However, Underground City had more powerful beings and more advanced technology, but it didn't enslave the Norland continent. It could already be considered as having a very high morality. After all, in the sci-fi movies, there was usually some kind of master and slave relationship between the two worlds which were connected but had a great disparity in technology. The Elder Thing's morality had even amazed him, an Earthling. Actually, I don't mean any harm. At least, Underground City gives me quite a good impression, and I don't want the various races on the Norland continent to suffer the impact of the Underground City's civilization yet. Mag calmly said to Xi, as an observer, you should know the Norland continent's current standard of living very well. It's not a good thing to let them know about the existence of another world. Not even letting some of them know about it. I know you won't spread this news deliberately. Xi drank a sip of wine. Hence, Underground City isn't going to take any action against you. Is the existence of the Norland continent a secret in Underground City? Mag asked again. It's a secret that belongs to a few. Xi nodded. Mag nodded thoughtfully. To Underground City, the Norland continent was just like a noob village. Although some big bosses would appear every now and then, with Underground City's powerful technological strength, it was enough for them to flex. However, the situation of people from Underground City coming over didn't happen frequently. Even a young mistress from a great family like Vicky had to sneak over and almost ended up starving to death. The upper echelon of Underground City must have some kind of tacit agreement or some kind of restriction regarding the policy of the Norland continent. Even though Mag was curious, Mag was restrained about the idea of linking up the two worlds. Lantist falling into Underground City was an accident, and it was beyond his expectations that Underground City was willing to accept them. The technological difference of tens of thousands of years was more than just a gap. The Norland continent could descend into chaos. Comparatively, it was more stable to let the people on the Norland continent take a speeding train, read a colored picture book and watch a movie with a cooking tutorial advert installed in it in the cinema first. This meal of grilled meat took over an hour. Mag finally sautéed a piece of steak for Xi before ending this supper. Xi wiped her mouth and said to Mag, "The grilled meat is delicious. Thank you for your hospitality. Don't mention it. Have you decided what other dish you want to have for free for life?" Mag asked smilingly. Xi thought for a while before shaking her head. "I still need to think about it." She thought that red braised pork was the most delicious dish in the world when it was the only dish that she had eaten. Then, she also found the beef kebabs and mutton kebabs very delicious when she tried them tonight. And, the black pepper steak that was the finale, was even more scrumptious. There were still many more dishes on the menu. She believed it was a piece of fertile land that was worth spending time to discover and savor before making her choice. She still wants to eat for free. Mag made his judgment. Even though Vicky wasn't stable emotionally, she was still much easier to cheat compared to Xi. Mag had already decided that he would take Vicky as the breaking point and extract the Underground City's secret from her. With Black Cat Opera around, she couldn't hide. Mag was about to clear the table when Irina came down from the stairs with a smile. "Is it fun to drink and flirt with two little beauties?" "I'm working here," Mag replied seriously. Irina rolled her eyes at him. She sat down and crossed her legs. "I didn't expect Vicky to hail from Underground City too. However, she didn't look very powerful or outstanding. With the assistance of advanced technology, the physical combat power doesn't represent a person's combat power completely. I have seen her self-detonating a battleship at Thulhu and running madly on the ice sheets in a mech. Mag shook his head with a smile. If we consider the mech as well, her combat power was equivalent to a 9th-tier giant dragon. If she has the battleship, that strength will be even harder to gauge. Irina opened her mouth. Although she didn't understand what kind of enhancement the mech and the battleship could give to Vicky, she still chose to trust Mag's judgment. She changed the topic. I can see that she was rather interested in you. It shows that I am still as charismatic as before. Mag seriously said, I think they just want to eat my dishes for free. It's the underground city's old tradition. You want to go to underground city? Irina looked into Mag's eyes and asked. Yes. It holds the secret to becoming a god. To me, it's indeed very attractive. I'll definitely go and take a look. Mag nodded. But there is no longer any god in this world. Irina's voice was cold and her expression was serious. Mag was suddenly stumped. He suddenly realized the meaning in Irina's words. Sweat beaded on his forehead and he felt a chill up his back. Yes. There had been numerous legends regarding gods on the Norland continent and almost every race prayed to all kinds of gods. However, in the past eons, there had been no concrete evidence of the gods ever appearing and no gods from any race had brought them to glory ever. The gods might have appeared on the Norland continent, but they had all disappeared. Nobody knew where they went. They didn't leave behind any evidence either. In such a huge continent and a world where countless races coexisted, was it true that no one had ever reached that limit in the past tens of thousands of years? Even Alex and Lantist had seen that invisible existence in the recent few hundreds of years. He didn't think that they were some kind of genius. Such a possibility was simply too slim. Where did those people go after becoming gods? I understand your pursuit for power, but what will happen after you become one? Are we going to offer you a joss stick after you become a god whenever we miss you? Irina continued to ask. Mag laughed silently. Talking about joss sticks, he was thinking about his path of becoming a god by gaining believers. XI said that there are beings more advanced than the 10th tier. They are the extraordinaires. I want to see what kind of beings the extraordinaires really are. Are they really gods? Mag said with a solemn expression, if they could still stay in underground city after becoming gods, that means every rule here could be broken. Irina nodded thoughtfully before saying, if you really met a real god, it won't be easy for you to escape them. I can always run if I'm not their match. I'm rather confident in my abilities to escape, Mag smilingly said before he went to Irina and massaged her shoulders. Do you want to eat anything? We still have grilled meat. I'm not eating your leftovers. Irina shook her head. After thinking, she said, I want to eat your noodles. This. Mag looked at Irina's lush red lips before going to the kitchen. I'll go make the noodles. A bowl of shaved noodles was soon made and Mag added 2 fried eggs for her. Mag sat across from Irina and watched her eat the shaved noodles daintily. Her dainty mouth on her beautiful face sucked gently and a shaved noodle slid into her mouth. She chewed it, looking very adorable. Don't look at me when I'm eating. Irina glared at him. Someone once said we should look at the most beautiful thing when we stay put in one place quietly. Mag shrugged. I have no other choice. Glib-tongued. Irina rolled her eyes, but she couldn't help but smile. She bit into the fluffy fried egg and the yolk oozed out slowly. It was crispy on the outside and tender on the inside. It was delicious. She loved the eggs Mag fried the most. He seemed to have fried the eggs with pork lard. It was fluffy and the yolk was soft. It was a delicacy that others couldn't replicate. Irina felt full after eating 1 bowl of noodles and 2 eggs. She put down her chopsticks satedly. How's the construction at the school? Irina asked casually. It should be almost done. I'll go check it again tomorrow. We just need to put the equipment in and we should be ready before the school opens. Mag nodded. He trusted the Night Elves construction team. Let's go. Irina got up and prepared to go out. Where to? Mag was befuddled. Why were they going out at night? Didn't you receive a gun from XI? Let's go have some fun with it, Irina said. Throwing a glance at him, she continued on speaking, not that gun of yours. I didn't expect you would be interested in that. Mag was a little surprised. Do you think that I am a conservative old fogey? No, but it's usually the men who are more interested in such things. I simply don't want to be abandoned by the times. After all, how embarrassed I would be if some juniors come and tell me, Auntie, the times have changed. Irina said honestly. Let's go. I'll teach you how to operate a gun today. Mag chuckled. He held onto her hand. Let's go to the Magic Beast mountain range. Irina waved her hand and a golden beam lit up underneath their feet. The two of them reappeared outside of the city, and with another blink, they appeared on the peak of the tallest mountain in the Magic Beast mountain range. This is an assault rifle. Its killing distance is 30 kilometers. It's a deadly threat to 10th tier powerhouses within a 15-kilometer range. Mag took out the assault rifle and began to introduce it to Irina before teaching her how to aim and shoot. Although he did not seem like a bad person, this concerned the two worlds and the bigger picture was more important than whether the person was good or not. Vicky's identity was a little special. She could get in contact with things that most of the Union residents in the underground city could not. This also meant that she was in control of the real core secret of the underground city. Although she was also restricted by the regulations to keep the underground city a secret, XI could not help but worry if she would be able to keep the secret with her alcohol tolerance. Come, one more shot. Lord Alex, you're so impressive. Vicky mumbled. She flipped over and let out a happy squeal. XI resisted the urge to pull out her recorder and covered Vicky up with a thin blanket. She turned to exit the room and went into her office. It was time to write in her daily diary again. Observer's Diary, Day, Sunny. Mag brought Irina around the Magic Beast mountain range to experience the joy of hunting. The assault rifle was put to silent mode and they chose the more agitated magic beasts as their targets. After shooting a few rounds to get used to the rifle, Irina quickly got the know-how of how to use the rifle. She locked onto her target and glanced over as she opened fire. Her kill rate was almost 100%. Mag was alone in the corner for quite a while before he silently gave her a thumbs up. Some things really required talent. Although he was a man and seemed to be more suitable to handle a gun, his skills could not be compared to Irina, who was very talented. It seems pretty easy. Irina put the assault rifle down and asked Mag, is this the usual standard for those who play with this for the first time? The corner of Mag's lips twitched. This was in no way the standard of a first-timer. What a flex from the king of the rising generation of female soldiers. You are very talented in using a gun, Mag said with a smile. The power of this gun far exceeded my expectations. If it's a normal human being who is using this gun, as long as they are professionally trained and could find the suitable spot to lock onto their target, they could totally kill an unguarded 10th tier powerhouse. Irina looked at the gun in her hand and said seriously, the capabilities of the underground city seemed to far exceed my expectations. Mag nodded. If it was the underground city that was the intruder instead of the army of the dead, we would not be able to win. Their battleship alone could greatly impact the Norland continent, much less their machine guns and mechanized soldiers. How do we defend against their intrusion in that case? Irina asked. We don't have to think about that for the time being because we have no way to defend against them at all. Mag shook his head with a smile. Let's not be hostile towards them and don't see them as our enemy. We should not even let a fourth person on the Norland continent, other than you, me, and Gina, know about the existence of the underground city. That way, the Norland continent would not be put in danger. The underground city initiated the division with the Norland continent and imposed segregation between the two. It would be sufficient to just maintain the status quo. Irina nodded thoughtfully and seemed to be reassured. Are we still playing for a while longer or going back? Mag asked. Let's go back. It's enough to know what this is and how powerful it is, but I still prefer a direct battle. Irina passed the rifle back to Mag. Mag suddenly imagined Irina holding a folding chair in her hand and found the image rather funny. Back in the restaurant, after the two showered together, a few rounds of battle, and making the bed endure a pressure it should not, they went to sleep with satisfaction. The next morning, Mag woke up early and after finishing up with the morning operations, he went to Hope School. The main part of the holistic building was completed. The decorations on the interior and exterior walls were going on at the same time. The best carpenters among the night elves made the roofs, railings, and other details very cute, interesting, and as beautiful as a piece of artwork. Mr. Mag, the construction work can be completed tonight. We will remove all barricades and other items overnight. Do you need us to help with placing the furniture inside? The leader of the construction team asked Mag. It's been hard on all of you. I wouldn't trouble you to put the furniture in. Mag nodded. One could tell that the night elves were professional through and through from how they completed the work a day before the deadline. As for things like teaching tools, Mag ordered them directly from the system. All he needed was the venue to be ready and the system could deliver and place the goods for him there. Therefore, it would be better for no one to be around so he would not have to go through the trouble of explaining. Mag did not walk around the campus in case he affected everyone's work. However, when he walked out of the school gate, he met someone familiar. Boss Mag, what are you doing here? Vivian greeted him with a smile as she walked over, in shock at seeing a rare guest. I'm here to supervise. Mag pointed in the direction of the construction. I heard from Luna. You are opening a chef's course and you even built your own chef's holistic building. That takes a lot of money. Vivian took a step forward and asked cheekily, can I listen in? Are you attending Hope School too? Aren't you too old? Mag asked in shock. Vivian stamped her feet in anger. I'm a teacher. Not a student. Oh, you're a teacher, Vivian. Mag smiled. You're welcome to listen in. However, I can't guarantee that you will understand. Don't worry. I am very talented at cooking. This is a well-established fact in our family, Vivian said confidently. Mag did not quite believe her. After all, Michael was so busy with work that he definitely would not cook. Besides, the city lord's wife did not seem like a wealthy lady who cooks. In that case, there was not much value in the established fact of being a talented chef in a family of 3. However, since Vivian was interested in listening to him teach, he would not reject her. A fan would be a fan. Who could choose their fans? Are you here for a trial class? Mag changed the topic. Oh. I'm here to listen in on a class. Oh no, I'm going to be late. Vivian smacked her forehead and quickly dashed into the school, not forgetting to turn around and bid Mag goodbye. Bye, Boss Mag. I'm coming over for dinner tonight. Mag watched Vivian, who did not seem very smart, as she left. After that, he rode off leisurely on his bicycle. He did not rush back to the restaurant. Instead, he went over to Shears and asked her for some experienced engineers. He was preparing to build a machinery college for Hope School. Technology makes life better and machinery would be the cornerstone of technology. Mag wanted some of the children in Hope School to have some hands-on experience with the highest technology in the Norland continent so that they could join in on projects and might even have the chance to lead some. Mag's idea just now was to make the machinery college in Hope School into a place where the Norland continent's top mechanics would be groomed. With that as the basis, they could proceed to develop in the Norland continent. Mag performed spectacularly in his projects from the steam engine to the color printing machine. However, it seemed as though he was just playing around. But at this moment, Shear seemed to have seen a resolution to do something seriously upon Mag. Shear did not know what else Mag could create, or what kind of talents he would raise. Therefore, she would never let a chance like this slip by. "Mr. Mag, tell me what you want, I will do my best to support you," Sheer told Mag sincerely. "All right. I shall." Mag nodded with a smile. He liked this kind of wealthy lady who had money, looks, and was obedient. Sheer brought Mag over to the steam train factory. There, the finest and best engineers and machinery designers of Chaos City, and even the Norland continent, were gathered. The designing and making of machinery was a broad and blurry concept to them previously. In the past, each one of them would have to do both the designing and making. Without even one of the abilities, they could not do well in their craft. After going through the huge project of designing and making the steam train, they had started accepting some new theories which overthrew some perspectives and ways of thinking that were instilled in them. For example, designing and production could be partnered together. The designers would be in charge of designing and the good craftsmen would materialize the design. The good part of that meant that it would be easier to become a designer. Even women, who could not lift the heavy hammer, could be a good designer. This could also allow craftsmen to focus more on producing, and that was where races more talented in forging, like the demons and orcs, could better develop their skills. This had a huge impact on the artisan system in the Norland continent. It could even be considered a revolutionary impact. The cause of all these changes was a blueprint of the steam train that made everyone take their hats off to Mag, who was the person who made the blueprint. Therefore, Mag has recently become very popular among the proud designers here. "I heard that Master Mag is here and on his way over with Miss Sheer." "Really? Let's go take a look quickly." The chief engineer even said that he was going to invite him over to give us a lesson. "Let's go, let's go, let's go." News of Mag's visit spread, and other than some engineers who had work at hand, all the engineers went over to take a look. When Sheer and Mag arrived at the engineering department, they saw the engineers peeking their heads out with expectant looks. These obsessed mechanics would not usually even give her a second glance even if she came over to them. However, all of them came over as though they were here to see their lover when they heard that Mag was coming. Is that man so attractive to them? "Mr. Mag, you're finally here." Chief Engineer Burrell went up and shook Mag's hand enthusiastically. "I am here to take a look with Miss Sheer, and I also have something to discuss with you." Mag nodded with a smile. He knew that the chief engineer of the steam train was not interested in him, but his knowledge of machinery. "Miss Sheer." Burrell finally greeted Sheer. However, he quickly turned to look at Mag and said, "Mr. Mag, what are your requirements? I will definitely do my best to help you with anything I can decide on. I am here. Shouldn't I be making the decisions?" Sheer dismissed him. "Why is this guy so obsessed with Mag? I intend to set up a machinery college in Hope School. Currently, we are lacking teachers, so I want to see if I can recruit any talents from you who are interested in teaching." Mag cut straight to the point. In any case, Sheer had already agreed to it, so he was here to pick the people. "I see." Burrell was stunned for a while and subconsciously turned to look at Sheer. Although he was the chief engineer of the steam train project and had some say in this place, he was not in the position to make promises with regards to the movement of people in front of his employer. The engineers who watched were also stunned. They did not expect Mag to be here today to poach them. Currently, the steam train project is going very smoothly. The railroad leading to the dwarves was in construction and the improved steam train was also in the making. Everyone could see that a mighty invention was in the making, and so no one was willing to leave at the moment. "I've already had a chat with Mr. Mag and I am very supportive of Hope School setting up the machinery college." Sheer nodded and said, "This college would be led by Mr. Mag and the topic of research would be the latest machinery technology. This would open a completely new path in the exploration of machinery design and creation. Led by Mr. Mag. Research the latest machinery technology. Opening a new path." Sheer was not loud, but the news sounded like thunderous explosions to the engineers. Their eyes all lit up and they all looked at Mag passionately. The steam engine came from Mr. Mag. He had displayed his astounding talent in machinery, which made everyone involved in this project respect and idolize him. Now that he was going to stand out and was going to create a completely new path in machinery design and creation, what would this mean? It meant that this opportunity would be an event written in the history of the Norland continent's machinery. On top of that, participants might have a chance of leaving their names in the books of history. It is such an important matter. I am naturally going to take part. Mr. Mag, I am willing to join Hope School and be an honorable teacher, Burrell told Mag seriously. Scheer glanced at him. He was the chief engineer of the steam engine project. If he were to run away, the whole project would have to be put on hold. Mag also did not know whether to laugh or cry. He said with a shake of his head, I would not dare to want you. Miss Scheer definitely would not let you go either.